Once they started picking on each other and stuff, it goes on all night in there. That doesn't help. It takes it out. Yeah, I hear you.
Brian, out of the store.
I figured I'd come over. Oh, are you going to share?
I can hold on to
Oh, yeah. Oh, I was there. Were you there? Did you know that somebody told me that and in other cities, it's about 600. And Montana is 200. Together for a third of that money. It's like, how can we?
Yeah, something's got to happen. Yeah.
They could have put
Why am I
more
looking at
chairs.
myself very much?
And actually, this is supposed to close. They can't let everybody in. They're supposed to close it and have another time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's getting more expensive.
People get sick.
Should have brought the camping chairs.
Yes.
It's a blessing. There's always somebody who's
It's packed in here, so that's a good
Would everyone please rise for the pledge of allegiance and remain standing?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all.
The invocation will be said by Mayor Pro Tem Ambrose. Sorry.
May all of our decisions be fair and just for all in the city of Walled Lake. Amen.
Roll call, please.
Ackley.
Here.
Ambrose. Here. Costanzo.
Here.
Locke. Lublin.
Here.
Osnick.
Here.
Robertson.
Here.
Okay, I had a message that Tamara will be late, so
She's supervisor at the post office and she's adjusting.
she's adjusting, so she'll be here. What time, we're not sure, but she'll be here. Okay, request for agenda changes. I would like to see under new business number 2, we have a discussion on recreational marijuana. Is there anyone else that would like to have some suggestions?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I have two brief additions to the agenda. Under number 3, unfinished business, just a quick discussion on the city sidewalks / crosswalks in our downtown district.
Okay,
And number 4, unfinished business, the public safety campus expansion at 1275 East West Maple Road.
number 4 under what, please?
Unfinished business,
Okay, and that's on the public safety?
campus expansion.
Okay. Okay, is there anyone else that would like to add anything to our agenda? Okay. I'm just wondering, since we do have a lot of officers here, do we wanna move that item? No? Alrighty then, let's get started. We have approval, I'd like a motion for approval of the regular council meeting of July 16th, 2019. Do I have a motion, please? Support? Any discussion regarding the council, the minutes? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Ambrose. Yes. Costanzo.
Yes.
Locke. Lublin.
Yes.
Osnick.
Yes.
Robertson.
Yes.
Ackley.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, audience participation is coming up next, and we do have an item number 1 at the request of the individual, Ms. Doria Matkowski of Dance Dynamics, is asked to address the council. So she will go first, and then after that, anyone else who wants to speak can do so by raising their hands. Dory, would you like to step up to the podium? Give us your name, your address, and hopefully speak into the mic so Linda can hear.
Hello, my name is Dorlisa Matkowski, and the address is 1400 East West Maple, right across the street, Walled Lake. Thank you very much. I would first like to say that I do feel that everyone is entitled to their opinion. I respect all people, and I do not want to be here to have an argument or negative feelings. But there is a time when an opinion, not fact, especially expressed by public leaders, has a negative impact on tax-paying business and its reputation in our community. I would like to address City Council, our Mayor Ackley, the City Manager, and regarding a recent protest held against my business, my family, and my customers, and the apparent support that the city provided to protesters and their messages by way of opening City Hall and serving coffee and bagels. In providing physical support to the protest and making it a public statement that the city will no longer do business with Dance Dynamics, rather than making a business decision to just pause pending further investigation, The city has demonstrated an interest in taking sides in this issue. It is affecting students' opportunities to participate in their community through their gift of performing. As a member of the Walled Lake business community since 1977, I would like to express that Dance Dynamics has been a leader in the Lakes Area Chamber of Commerce, Walled Lake DDA, Lakes Area Arts Council, and Dance Dynamics has been supporting all city events, including the Long Ago Ice Festival, and Pet Days, and the Beach Party, and Market Days, Memorial Day Parade, all the schools, and many others. Through Dance Dynamics, Walled Lake has been represented in a positive light throughout the world. Dance Dynamics families and staff have also contributed considerable time, donations consistently through the years to the area, including our wonderful hospitality house. For the past 37 years, Dance Dynamics has brought families to this community within a 20-mile radius, maybe more, and they too have been contributing to the community. Even though we do not always agree with some of the things happening in the city, we discuss concerns with the people who need to know. Like Mayor Ackley knows that we've recently done that with herself. We had a choice a long time ago. Dance Dynamics made a lifetime commitment to the city. On behalf of families, customers, and staff at Dance Dynamics, I would like to express publicly that the petition and protests do not convey accurate information. They are opinions, unfounded allegations, and rumors. Dance Dynamics is a business community member that provides a safe, nurturing environment for students to enjoy dance and performing arts, and is a leader of safety throughout the nation. We take the safety and well-being of our students seriously, and it's the #1 concern before a student ever enters our studio. I want to go on public record to communicate that the city manager's decision to denounce Dance Dynamics' involvement with city activities at the last meeting is just disrespectful to the children and the families and the employees that support the community. Dance Dynamics has been a long-standing commitment to Walled Lake. Dance Dynamics would like to continue to create joy in this community and support its quality of life. I am hoping that the city can turn things around so that my business, other businesses, and residents of the community can be proud to be here. I would expect that the city council and manager to support all of the businesses and residents and organizations, and to ensure it gets facts before making public comments against any of them. If you would like to discuss any private matters about myself or my business, I am happy to have a conversation, and I will come in at a time that is convenient for both of us. Thank you for honoring my request, and as I represent Dance Dynamics tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, we'd like to address the presenter. I do want to, I have apologized, Dory, if it seemed like we were taking sides. I agree, I thought the action was unseemly at a minimum, considering you just suspended actions with your business while the investigation was pending, so I apologize.
that. Don't apologize for me, Councilman. I stand with the women who I met with on that Sunday. I came in here, I work every Sunday for the last 9 years. I work Saturday for the last 9 years. I met with the women who have been the subject of predatory conduct according to their testimony. We have a police report. My statements were made based on the comments that she made. She made an admission that her son had been diagnosed with a disease and that he was being treated for the predatory conduct. I stand with the young women who date all the way back to 2002 that the record showed. I stand with the woman who came forward and made a complaint that, if proven, is a felony. I stand with all those young women. I paid out of my pocket for the coffee and the donuts. I do not know that woman. That dynamic has been great for the community. The predatory contact is not great for the community. Councilman, you should know more about it. You should be ashamed of yourself for even know.
Don't start that, don't start that.
Point of order recognized.
It's wrong of the mayor to allow it.
Point of order is taken with council members.
It is
I have a
council
right to
member. It
talk.
does
I'm not a
not-
council member.
Point of order,
If he
not
doesn't
for the
like
city
what I
manager.
said, I'm responding because I stand with the young men and women. I spent 2 years going through an effort here because this disgraced former councilman was attacking the young women of this community. I didn't stop fighting then, and I won't stop fighting now. I paid for the donuts, I paid for that, and I opened City Hall. I didn't go to the protest. They were protesting just like the other protests.
Not your City Hall.
Tell him to stop talking.
Not your City Hall.
Not your building.
Her son,
Please,
after the
audience.
conduct that was made, she made her son the director of the company.
Yeah.
My job is to protect the young men and women who are over there, the children. My job is to protect.
That's the police.
You're the city manager.
Hasn't done
You're the
that.
city manager. It's not your city. You're an employee.
Employee,
You're
belong
an
over
employee.
here.
You don't even
You
live
belong over here.
Okay,
Anyway, I'm finished with that.
Dory Mikowski had her say. Councilmember Costanzo had his say. Nobody interrupted. I'm asking you to give the same respect to the city manager.
No.
And
No.
any other council member who would like to speak.
Councilman,
We
yes.
give you our respect, and I would expect that in return.
I never heard the council recognize the manager.
Nope.
Thank you. May I follow up, Madam Mayor?
The finish is there is an investigation. You shouldn't, we didn't make any comments about that lady. I don't know the lady. We didn't make any comments about her business that were derogatory.
Yes, you
I
did.
said we have to stand corrected. We have to protect the children first. We do have a complaint of predatory contact that dates all the way back to 2002 and continues in other parts of the country. That is an ongoing investigation. It's not the lady, it's not the dance dynamic. It's the people that she has employed. It's
not the studio. Not the studio.
It's real. I protect the women and I stand with the young women of this community. I have 4 daughters. I have a 14-year-old that starts high school this year. And I'm gonna stand with the women every time, and I'm not gonna apologize for what I did. I brought them coffee, I brought them donuts, and I let them come in to speak to the police officers that were there that day, to hear the testimony of those people who came forward. I do not have an obligation to apologize to anyone.
Thank you.
Okay, and I would also like to make a comment, since the mayor's name was brought up. When Dory Mikowski emailed me and asked me to meet with her, my comment to her was that there is an ongoing police investigation, and it is not my position as mayor to discuss it with her. I didn't discuss it with the chief of police. And I think the chief of police will verify that I've never gotten involved in an ongoing police report or investigation, and I will not get into it. It is not my position as mayor to do that. And that was my response to you. As far as opening up part of City Hall or the fire department, I think that would have been done for any group that was here protesting, needing counseling, or whatever the city could do for them. Not because it was against Dory Matkowski's Dance Dynamics or against anybody else. We are here as a citizen to support, and I think that's what happened that day. I did not attend because I had nothing that I could offer, so I was not here. But I think we would do it for any group of people that ask for some help.
We're gonna take you up on
We
that.
didn't ask for help.
We're gonna take you up on that, Linda.
We didn't ask for help.
That's not what occurred. It was a private meeting with the women who had a claim. Police officers were here to take their testimony. The office was not open to any protest. They did come in here, those are the same people, they protested outside, they brought their stuff outside, they brought their own food, drinks, they used the Porta John. They came in here, it was a private meeting with myself and my police officers to listen to the women. I apologize to the women for having to listen to this nonsense.
Thank you.
Some other women like it.
Thank you.
Okay. Can we go on to the next person who would like to speak? There's a lady in the back. Well, it was the one next to her that had her hand up first.
No, she
but-
had her hand up first.
Okay. Okay. As you approach,
Sure.
when you come up front, I need your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes. I kind of let you go a little over, but let's don't drag it. We got a big audience,
Right, we
okay?
were told that we could speak a little longer. I have some package information.
Thank you.
Hello.
Move the mic down.
I'm Shorty.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Callie Aegis. I live in Wolverine Lake, 1600 Lookout, Wolverine Lake. Thank you, Walled Lake City Council members and city employees for allowing me to speak here tonight. Like I said, my name is Callie Aegis, and I'm a victim of Tyler Matkowski, Dory Matkowski's son, business partner and protege. I'm also a founding member of a group called SIS, Stand in Solidarity with Victims of the Matkowski Family. I proudly speak tonight on behalf and with consent of many Matkowski victims and the supporter of those victims. As many of you already know from the local news or Facebook, I'm one of perhaps thousands of women who are alleged victims of Tyler Matkowski. Since a viral Facebook post exposing Tyler's sexual predatory misconduct went live on July 7th of this year, victims are continuing to come forward, sharing their horrific experiences at the hands of this man. Many have contacted the police as well as taking steps to make other potential victims and parents of potential victims aware of this danger. We have formed a coalition of support to spread awareness of sexual assault and harassment and seek justice for those who have suffered because of it. However, the revolution happening here in this town is about anyone and everyone who witnessed or experienced inappropriate behavior by anyone in the Matkowski family. We've provided screenshots highlighting comments regarding Dory Matkowski and her treatment of others in the packet of information. We've also included a strange email Dory Matkowski sent out on July 9th, just 2 days after the original Facebook post about Tyler went live. In that email, Dory tries to distance herself and her business from her own son. That is why we've included the Lara Certificate of Incorporation of Dance Dynamics in the packet also. It clearly shows Tyler Matkowski is legally linked to the dance studio that Dory Matkowski owns and operates. This Sunday, August 25th, SIS, our Stand in Solidarity Coalition, will be having its second event in Walled Lake. We will be demonstrating, networking, and handing out information for victims and supporters of victims of the Matkowski family directly across the street from the business they own, Dance Dynamics. By doing this, we hope to create and continue to spread awareness about the decades of wrongdoings that have been alleged against members of the Matkowski family. Tyler Matkowski also owns and operates Star-Studded Productions, a business that he allegedly used to solicit sexually explicit photos from young women looking to get professional headshots done. We want everyone to be aware of that business as well, as many of the alleged victims have confirmed that Tyler often used his position as a talent scout and producer at Star-Studded Productions to allegedly lure, stalk, harass, or assault many women. A simple Google search will confirm that Star-Studded Productions shares their address with Dance Dynamics, located at 1400 East West Maple Road in Walled Lake. The abuse that has been alleged against the Matkowski family by hundreds of people over many, many years has had a long reach and lasting consequences. It seems that anywhere the Matkowskis do business, more alleged victims can be found. Victims of all genders have made allegations against Tyler and Dory Matkowski in Florida, New York, as well as here in Michigan. Therefore, we members of CIS are desperate to get the word out and prevent Tyler or his mother from hurting anyone else. Based on our collective experiences, we believe the Matkowskis have wielded great influence and power over the young dancers and actors in charge over 30 years. This power caused the alleged victims of their abuse to remain silent and allow a sexual predator roam freely and with impunity among the young and innocent. Dory Matkowski owns Dance Dynamics, and Tyler, being her son, spent many hours there both as a dancer and choreographer over the years. Dory also worked with Walled Lake Schools during the High School Musical production. Any young person who wanted to be in the High School Musicals or those who wanted a future career in dancing, singing, or acting knew that they must be liked, that they must be chosen by Dory Matkowski. This is what gave her and her son so much power to abuse others. Everyone was afraid to cross them. Tyler was accused of sexually assaulting a female classmate as far as 2002 while he was just a junior at Walled Lake Western High School. The Oakland County Sheriff's Office failed to pursue criminal charges because of a lack of corroborating witnesses to the assault. Of course, there were witnesses. They were all just afraid, including me, of coming forward. I, like many others in the performing arts department, remained silent about Tyler because we all knew. Unfortunately, we were too young and naive to understand what Tyler had done to many of us was not normal backstage horseplay. We knew we didn't like it, but we didn't understand that it was assault. We knew how horrible and shameful the things he did to us made us feel, but we accepted them as normal. We thought that somehow it was our fault that Tyler assaulted or harassed us. We know better now, and we finally have the strength to speak out about it. We are hoping that our strength and collective voices will help others that are afraid, because we no longer are. Perhaps Tyler wouldn't have had the opportunity to assault hundreds of women that he had allegedly assaulted if his mother had not covered it so completely for him. Perhaps she could have gotten him treatment, or at the very least, keep him away from young women in the business after learning of his predatory behavior in 2002. But instead, Tyler was merely suspended for 1 week from Western, during which his time Dory started her own homeschool program for pre-professional students. She managed to successfully parlay her son's predatory behavior into a money-making opportunity for herself, and quickly spread the word that it was her son that was being harassed and persecuted. She said that it was her son being harassed and persecuted. Tyler continued to be involved with Dance Dynamics up until the viral thread went live. Tyler was also involved in musical productions in the Walled Lake Consolidated School District after he was suspended, where sadly he collected more alleged future victims.
Can you start wrapping up?
Yep, I can start wrapping up.
Yeah.
I'm going to start wrapping up.
Yeah, I know. We'll do it in court.
Oh, do you?
We believe that all this illustrates that over the years it's been Tyler's mother, Dory Matkowski, who has been his chief enabler, denying his allegations of crimes and covering up for his misdeeds and excuses, false medical diagnosis, and threats of retaliation against those who dare to speak of Tyler's alleged crimes. With the pre-pro homeschool she created, we believe that Dory provided a safe haven for her son and a nightmare for hundreds of little girls and young women looking to become a star at Dance Dynamics Performing Arts Center. Dory's the one that put him in direct and daily contact with young women of all ages of the studio and put out on photo shoots away from any potential intervention from school officials or parents. This is one of the best kept secrets of Walled Lake, all because of Dory and her scare tactics she used to intimidate and harass those who speak against her or her predatory son. In the meantime, please let me finish. I was told I would have a. I was told to wrap it up.
War and Peace.
Unfortunately, we know now that Tyler has gone on to allegedly assault others on a much grander scale as an adult. The recent Facebook post about Tyler and his predatory behavior has over 500 shares and 2,000 comments. Hundreds of comments posted by women who have encountered Tyler in Wild Lake and nationwide all have very similar stories. Dozens of women allege that they were cyberstalked, harassed, verbally pressured, sexually assaulted, or raped by Tyler Matkowski under the guise of providing them with professional photography and entertainment services. Screenshots of many of these conversations are available on the original Facebook thread. There are other more sordid details of Tyler's alleged criminal behavior out there, and they will come out in police reports and court cases when they're made public. I want to read a quote by someone who has familiar with the ongoings of Dance Dynamics. They don't want me to talk because I'm exposing the truth. And for one time, I want to speak. Let us speak.
Can we make it known right now that these accusations without proof is slander, and each one of you is now a witness to this crime?
If you have a place to be, you can leave now.
The studio's not even under
I'm willing
investigation.
to let her speak, but I can't hear her.
Not yet.
Slowly ask what you said, 3 minutes.
Could we remove people if they're being disruptive?
Close your mouth.
We're going with what the mayor said.
3
3 minutes, that's all we're saying. Go ahead.
Can anybody even verify there's still an open investigation?
Yes.
You guys, let's be above it and let her speak. You cannot 3 minutes, but let her go. Kaylee, keep going.
Her name is Callie.
Callie, sorry. I apologize. Go ahead, Callie.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
In the meantime, although Dory Matkowski maintains that her son Tyler was never officially employed as an instructor at Dance Dynamics when she speaks to the press, it is our understanding that Tyler has instructed on several occasions at Dance Dynamics studio since 2002 when he was first publicly accused of sexual assault. According to one supporter on Facebook that is familiar with the goings-on of Dance Dynamics, Tyler, quote, has done solo choreography and group choreography at Dance Dynamics. He's been brought in to judge the students at events. Tyler is backstage at yearly recitals. He's also present at the dance studio as an official headshot photographer and the show videographer. Tyler produces the dance students showcase under Star-Studded Productions. He is present with the children when they are out of town at national competitions and Disney performances. But most importantly, he is looked at an authority figure and a teacher surrogate by the children. This is very important to remember, unquote. There is photographic evidence of this person's remarks. Any allegation by Dance Dynamics to the contrary will be addressed in upcoming police investigations. After all of the revelations about Tyler went viral on Facebook and the dozens of abuse stories had begun to appear, but just when we thought it couldn't get any worse, stories about the abuse suffered at the hands of Dory began to surface. Please go on Facebook and read the posts of the horrific tales involving Dory and what our legal team believes are clear examples of cruel punishment, humiliation, psychological abuse of those in her care. People of all genders, dance students and musical participants of all ages, subject to psychological abuse and damage at the hands of Dory Matkowski. She may very well be as dangerous as her son. An example of this.
Those are opinions. That's
An example of this is included in the packet we gave the council tonight. In there is an email from Dory to her dynamic team attempting to explain and excuse the allegations that have been made against her son. The same son she covered up for allegations in 2002 when Tyler was in high school. In Dory's email, she attempts to frame her son's predatory behavior as a disease, stating that she was only recently made aware of Tyler's bad deeds and illegal behavior. Despite Tyler's disease of being an alleged sexual predator, Dory still allowed her son to guest judge at Tremaine Dance Nationals in Florida the same week the notorious thread went viral, further exposing countless young women and pressure of harassment to Tyler Matkowski as their judge in the competition. This illustrates Dory's lack of concern for Tyler's victims and a willful disregard of the danger his presence poses to those in her charge. Thankfully, Tyler was not allowed to judge the Tremaine Dance Nationals, not because of any actions taken by Dory. Dory did not alert the Tremaine.
I mean, maybe it isn't irrelevant. This is irrelevant. She's not done yet. She got
I understand. I'm getting to my point, sir, about your support. I feel like it's very important to give the full background. Thank you.
3 minutes.
Thank you. Here, I'll just move on.
There are people here that are on the other side, as well as this lady is talking. When she is finished,
Right.
if there's another representative that wants to come up and talk, you can come up next.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's going to be 10 o'clock tonight. And how long are you going to give her?
That guy looks like he has real problems.
You guys listen to her.
Please
This belongs to you.
try to finish up.
Thank you. There's about 12 more pages.
Testify.
Dory has also reached out to the media very recently. It's a post that was just made public this afternoon on the Spinal Column. You guys should all read it. You can find the newly published Spinal Column article in your packet as well. I implore everyone to read it. Unsurprisingly, it's offensive to victims everywhere. And insulting and derisive as Dory's comments are, I can't say that I'm surprised by them. The very fact that she casually suggests we are blowing it all out of proportion when we are talking about the alleged cyber-stalking, sexual harassment, assault, and rape of hundreds of people. It is a clear example of Dory's selfish motives and her glaring lack of sensitivity. Her words mirror those of other predators and child abusers from Larry Nassar to Bill Cosby. Blame and shame the victim instead of her son. Dory tries to switch the focus to the victim's actions and their response to the assault rather than the actual assault. It is a classic attempt to minimize the damage that's been done and the victims. Please let me address. Let me finish.
How many more pages?
This is serious.
It's their choice.
Process does matter.
Thank you.
That's the most important thing, due process, it's in our Constitution.
Thank you.
You know, we're trying someone in a public forum right now, and it's important
Thank you.
that we honor and respect the due process, and investigation is followed.
Excuse me, Mr. Cassandro, I think I'm still running the meeting.
I don't think so. You lost
Our purpose in holding this. Yes, miss.
If you have a couple pages, finish them.
Thank you.
20 minutes.
Somebody else from the other side.
Perfect. And they can talk to. Yeah, no, that'd be great. Just respectful.
Kelly, let her go on, Kelly.
Our purpose in holding this event is to allow a safe space for those who have been violated by the Matkowski family or other abusers to come forward with information and fellowship with fellow victims and supporters of victims of sexual abuse. We wear teal to spread awareness of the insidious nature of sexual harassment, assault, rape, and body shaming. We appreciate the City Council's support in helping us put together this space for other victims to come forward. We also think it is vitally important that the City of Walled Lake end all association with Dance Dynamics pending the ongoing current investigation. Your support for our group and cause puts this council on the right side of history, allowing us to utilize the council chambers and providing a female detective ready and waiting to speak to victims during our events has made a huge difference. Your support and cooperation shows that Walled Lake City Council takes our allegations and our safety seriously, and we thank you for that. We've also provided a Change.org petition with 1,320 signatures supporting our case. Most of us have learned over the years that the best way to prevent darkness and deceit from growing is to shine a bright light of truth on it. That's what we hope to do now at our CIS events. Our intentions are not malicious. We seek only to protect future generations of victims from enduring the abuse we suffered. This has gone on far too long, and it must stop here and across the globe. We will not allow ourselves to be intimidated into silence anymore. As I close, I want to just believe, achieve. Disgusting. Disgusting. Now that we know what we know about their business practices. However, we would like to rebrand and reclaim those words from them. CIS believes we should inspire strength, believe victims, achieve justice.
That's trademark, you can't do that.
Thank you. We can turn
Mary's church said that with us too, but we can
turn this beat around and stop abuse and harassment, at least here in our hometown. It's a start, and as a member of CIS, we give our endless appreciation to the members of Walled Lake City Council for their continued support for this case.
One more thing.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Sorry.
I believe this lady has spoke for the victims and spoke very well.
No.
Are you the one that's coming up?
She's the one that won't shut her mouth.
No, I'm letting her to go by. I had to get away from them.
Okay.
That's all. No, I'm not coming up. I was trying to get away from the racket.
Okay, I promise to allow somebody to come up and speak from the other side. Who is the person that is going to do that?
That's not me, Madam Mayor. Me and the wife just had a statement of thanks to make, and it is time sensitive, especially with the heat in the room. She can't stay here all night. She's had a heart attack. We would like to leave.
Okay.
So if
know
I
who
can
you
I
are,
get the
but
next?
Please give your name and address.
Okay, if I can get her up here with me?
If she doesn't have to come up, just give me your name and address.
She wanted to.
She wants to? Okay. Everybody else can take a deep breath.
Please. Getting me cranked up and I ain't even here over this. Give me Bob and Terry Dar, 148 Arvita, Walled Lake, Michigan. Now we are becoming considered long-term residents. Go ahead.
You might need to finish for me, so.
Be sure you speak in the mic so
Okay.
I can hear you. Thank you.
I appreciate everybody letting me take cuts, truly. I've been a Walled Lake resident for almost 30 years. I've seen many, many council and employees come and go. I remember the days from Ben Domingo to Walker, you name it, we've been here. At this point in my life, I am truly embarrassed to call myself a Walled Lake resident. With the divide of the people as bad as it is good to have checks and balances and differences of an opinion. But this city has become a place where you're either on one side or the other, and you can't voice your opinion because you have to worry about the retribution of the other side. That being said, if there's one thing that I can say that I am extremely proud of and very unhappy that I wasn't able to take part in the millage because of being in the hospital, I am extremely proud of our fire and police department, and I really want that known at this time.
We all thank you for that.
With this divide that is going on, I see so good on both sides, but I can't say that because I have to worry about what it will do to me. That being said, on August 4th, I thought I was having a bad panic attack, and I thought that it was one I couldn't get out of, and I asked my husband to call 911, figuring they would come out, smack me upside the head, calm me down, and I'd be fine. Unfortunately, Peter Carolyn walked through the front door, first person, and I knew then that, that was it. And Peter jumped right in and took right over, not only in treating me, but in calming me. And right behind him was the police department, Jason Gonzalez, the EMTs. I have no idea who that little girl is in the EMT department. I would surely love to find out how to contact her supervisor, because man, she was tough, but she was good. She was really good. She walked us through it. The fire department walked my husband and I through everything. Things went extremely fast. They said I did nitro in the house. I thought I did it in the ambulance. Did we do it twice? I have no idea. But I know that I'm a survivor with a Widowmaker heart attack. Wow. That being said, a couple days later, I ended up back in the hospital. with heart failure for another 5 days. This is going to be an extremely long journey, one I never thought I would have. But I think it's so important to me that with everything that I've ever gone through in 30 years of being here, I want to thank our fire and police department, because without you guys on many things, from gas in my son's eyes, seizure for my son, Coomer, you cut my rings off. Our departments are solid, and I think if nothing else, we need to try and learn from them. The day I was released the first time, I went to the fire department to thank them. Peter wasn't there. I spoke to Jason Gonzalez, and I thanked him. And Jason said to me, it's what we do. I know it's what we do, but it's what we do with the love in our hearts for our community. And I truly think that this community is losing sight of that. We have so many fabulous people here, and I just hope we can find our way back, because we have a very dedicated force. And God, look at this. This is wonderful. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing us the time.
Thank you.
And for interrupting everybody else.
Good news is welcome.
Thank you.
And your comments tonight are the reason that so many work to support and get the millage so we could keep our great police and fire department. And the people of Wall Lake came through and they showed us what they wanted. And they want our police and fire. So we thank you. Thank you. And thank you for coming. Okay. Now, I promised somebody to go next. Is there somebody that wanted to follow the first lady?
Are you guys gonna speak? Because I will if you're not.
Well, I have something to say.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Cecilia Young. My address is 706 Owl Court. I've been out here in Wall Lake now maybe like for about 11 years. I moved out here for Dance Dynamic Performing Arts Center. My children, and I do feel sorry for what the young lady went through at a teenager year. I also have children, daughters, so I understand. But what we have here is a family. It is a business. What her son has done, that's her son. She tried as a parent to do the best as we do. But this business is her home as well as our home. A lot of children have been very successful through her business, through her culinary school. My son had attended Wall Lake Central. They were very nasty to him. He didn't even want to go to school. We ended up going over to the homeschool. My son has graduated, which is a blessing. And my kids are both performers. Yes, she is hard, but my job is hard. But I just want to sit up here and say it's still a good place. It's a good place. Her education, her program works. The process works. So don't sit up here and get it twisted with what her son has done and what her business is doing. They have given back to the community. They work with disability children. If you ever came to one of the recitals and seen how it's ran, you'll be amazed. A lot of kids out there, they push the kids around in a wheelchair. I have people all over asking me about the program. Again, her programs work. But again, as being a parent, she was just protecting her son. He's grown now. So let's just point the finger at him and leave her alone. That star-studded program, my daughter was adjudication. She sat up there and corrected the children. So I don't know about Tyler or whatever. I do feel sorry for some of the girls who were involved. You know, my daughter went there again. And as far as pictures and things, some of the kids, they got upset with Dory because they couldn't be in this and that. But a lot of the kids are successful. They attend PACE. And a lot of them that may have been making these comments on Facebook or social media, they got through that at PACE with her help. So where would they be at if she wasn't here? We done fundraisers. They cut out the kids' St. Mary's thing. Them children work hard for it.
We didn't cut it out. St. Mary's did.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, it's still, you know, how would you feel, you know?
We're trying to protect future victims.
We're trying to protect our
But it's not so much of the victim, I'm talking about her business. I understand you. This is her business that I'm talking about. It's about, right, it shouldn't be her business that y'all attacking. Y'all attacking family and these babies. There's a lot of successful kids in there that are very good.
Please face
I'm
this
sorry.
way. And with the audience again, I ask you, we gave respect to the other lady who spoke, that you seem to be
You did.
on that
You
side.
did. You did.
So please give this lady the same respect. That's all I ask, is a little bit of respect for whoever is talking.
Keep going, Cece.
Okay, but there's a lot of talent in that studio. I have been to plenty of studios. Some of them, they can't sit up here and say, well, my studio's ran like this. I know some studio owners that allow them to date. That doesn't go on there. You know, it doesn't happen there. Smoke, drink, that doesn't happen there. You have to go in there, you have to report yourself, you have to give your grades and things. Again, they're attacking her studio, her business, when they should just be attacking her son. He's grown. He's grown, just like you as being a parent.
He's done, and our hearts go out.
Yeah, and I feel sorry, but he's grown.
Yeah, we do.
Can you let her talk? Jeez.
But me as being, again, being a parent, that's just like you go to your family doctor, come to find out his son killed somebody. Would you stop going to him? And you've been going to him all these years?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, because his son.
No, you wouldn't. That happens every day. And all we do is pray and leave it alone, because justice will serve. Like they sit here and say, he is without sin, let him cast the first rock. I don't think anybody in here can sit here and cast no rocks.
That's right.
That's all I have to say. Don't mess with the lady business and mess with these children. These children are innocent.
They are.
They can send it out. Somebody can following these kids on Facebook. The reason why I know, my son showed me. And telling them little nasty things. So my thing is, what if I was to send you a nice picture back?
This is not a conversation between the speaker and the audience. You're addressing the council. If you need to go on, fine. If you're finished.
Yeah, but that's all I really want to sit up here and say. Don't attack the business. And I just ask y'all, don't attack her business. If you want to attack her and her son, that's fine. But you have a lot of good teachers. We have friends, family. We have developed a relationship, not only with each other, but as well as the community itself. Walled Lake school system. My child had to audition, just like the next child had to audition to be in a play. My daughter didn't make it, but my son did. You know, but who still paid? You still have to pay that amount to be in there. So it's like they say, it is a process. That's all I have to say. But my children are doing very well. My daughter is performing on the Disney cruise ship, and my son is moving on as well. So I just want to let you know it is a successful program.
Thank you, Cece.
Okay. Are there more people who want to speak, who have other lady here in the...
Thank you.
I say orange, but they tell me I'm colorblind.
Hi, thank you. My name is Rachel Jordan. I have grown up in Walled Lake. Went to Walled Lake Central High School. I myself was a student of Dance Dynamics way back in the day. I attended Walled Lake Western or Walled Lake Central. My parents have taught in the Walled Lake School District. Galen Decker and Pam Decker they're both retirees now, but for years and years and years. My daughter is a 16-year graduate of Dance Dynamics. She has danced there for 16 years. I have a 7-year-old who is also a student there. My daughter is now attending Oklahoma City University, which is the second-ranked school for dance in the nation. Very successful program, and she is truly there because of the training and the love and the family and the support of Dory, her staff, and of Dance Dynamics. I am a teacher. I have a master's in education and was an employee of Waterford Schools in special education for many years. I can truly say my children are probably safer at Dance Dynamics than they are in my own home. The love the care, the discipline that has been given to my children in that studio is unequivocal to anything that we've ever experienced. It is truly a second family. My daughter is a graduate of Walled Lake Western just last year, this spring. She was offered many opportunities and many times spoken to about the homeschooling program. It is just something that we decided, it was not pushed upon us. It was a choice. We were presented with it. We were asked, does Taylor want to participate in this? And we said no. We would like her to go to public high school, but continue her dance education. And that was it. It was never used as something to be coercive. It was only a place of her receiving the absolute best training she could to enter a pre-professional dance program and achieve her dreams of being a future Rockette, being on Broadway, and she's achieving that. At any time, I've been there for 16 years. Was Tyler ever present at the studio? Sure, he was her son. We saw him once in a while. Was he in the classrooms with my daughter? No, he wasn't. She wasn't. He wasn't. Not mine. I respectfully ask you to just let me talk about my daughter's experience. You weren't there. Thank you. Never at any time were my children in danger, felt in danger. Were never in a place where my husband, my ex-husband now, but my husband, at the time, were ever worried about that. And as an educator, I can truly say that if there was a problem, we would have addressed it. There never was. So I just respectfully ask the board, the city, to realize the assets that this studio and what Dory and her associates and the other teachers provide for this community. It is one of the strengths in Walled Lake. At all the community events, Dance Dynamics shines, and its people shine, and we just come from a place of love and of support for our dancers. Is it the studio for every child? No, it's not. And if people want to leave, we respectfully say, okay, you're gonna find another path. That's great. We just asked for, and I just asked for my daughter and for my future daughter that's still dancing there and will remain a dancer there. As long as Dance Dynamics doors are open, we will be there because we love it and we believe in it. And then just speaking from my heart and from my daughter's experience and from what Dory and, again, all of the teachers at the studio have done for this community. And I think that it would be a really big disservice for the board to decide that otherwise. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Lady in the back on the right, on my right, front of the police officer, you've had your hand up forever.
Oh, okay.
How you get up here, you're on your own. Am I okay up here? We definitely just check.
My name is Robin Martin. I live at 1753 Ashton. I've lived in the same town my entire life. I was born in Pontiac, lived at that address 34 years. I'm here as a victim. I am a victim, and it's taken me almost 20 years to say those words out loud. I've spent the past 6 weeks only coming to terms with what that means. I've lost sleep, I've lost my hair, and there were times that I thought I was losing my mind. I've been called a liar and other horrible names. I've even been accused of seeking my own 15 minutes of fame, all because I've been speaking my truth. When I was in high school, I was assaulted by Tyler Mikowski. I never came forward and I never told anybody because I was afraid. I was afraid for several reasons, but most importantly, I was terrified of Dory, Tyler's mother. I was a performing arts student at Walled Lake Western, and I knew the weight of her opinion. I knew how her opinion was sought after by teachers. I will always regret not coming forward, and that's my guilt, and I'm still learning how to deal with that. I was never a dancer for Dance Dynamics, and because my abuse didn't happen at the studio, I've never blamed Dory for it.
Fast forward to July 7th and the now viral Facebook thread. I've learned about Tyler's alleged predatory behavior and how long it's been going on. And I also learned about the homeschool program that Dory created so he could graduate after he was suspended from high school. I never held her responsible for my assault, but I hold her responsible for every assault that happened after 2002. She knew what he was capable of when he was suspended for assaulting a student, and she has encouraged him by naming him director, as hiring him as a guest choreographer and an adjudicator, and allowing him to run star-studded productions out of her studio. They share the same address. He's there. He's been there. And in my opinion, he's always going to be there. Dory isn't responsible for my assault, but she's responsible for someone else's. Someone's daughter, sister, niece, or granddaughter has been affected by this, and she failed to protect them. To the City Council, I sincerely want to thank you for your support for our cause up until now, and hopefully your continued support. Your support is what is allowing me to stand here today and say that I am a victim. It shows that there is a light at the end of this very dark tunnel. To Dory and Tyler, I want them to know that I am no longer afraid. I found my voice and I'm going to use it. I will scream it from the rooftops if I have to. We are the voice of change, and their time's up. Thank you so much.
Okay, the lady that was standing next to her.
This way.
Hello, my name is Megan Wright. I live at 41844 Liberty Drive. I am here not as a victim of Dory or Tyler, but as a supporter of the victims of Dory and Tyler. The first thing I'd like to say is address the people that have spoken, and I don't want to address them directly, I just want to say what they said. Thank God that your girls have not been sexually assaulted. Thank God that your girls were not harassed by Dory. Because if they were, I'm assuming that you wouldn't be there still. And it's really hard for me to hear people who hear victims speak, and they're more upset about the victims speaking than the actions that took place at the studio. And that's really sad to me. I'm going to read some statements from actual victims of both Dory and Tyler. So here goes. As a victim of Dory Makowski, emotional and psychological abuse, and friends of victims of Tyler Makowski's sexual harassment, I support the City of Walled Lake in their decision not to invite Dance Dynamics to any city events until the investigation is complete. I have witnessed Dory's humiliate children and instill fear in dozens of people, myself included, making Tyler's victims too intimidated to speak out about their experiences. But it's time for us to no longer let Dory control our lives. For centuries, women have been drowning in a culture bounded by victim shaming, and I believe our current society is doing its best to dig its way out of the school of thought that victims who do not speak up in the moment are lying about their experiences. Dory's recent statements about situations being, quote, blown out of proportion and calling victims' stories and experiences noise is insensitive and immature. I believe that both Tyler and Dory must face the consequences of their actions, which have been going on since 2002, and the community must hold them accountable for doing so. We must stand united in supporting the hundreds of victims of both Dory and Tyler throughout the country who share similar experiences with the same sexual predator, Tyler Makowski. And that's from Maria Pizzo. This next one. I'm a former student of Dance Dynamics Performing Arts Center in Walled Lake, Michigan, and I can verify that a lot of the accusations made against Tyler and Dory Makowski were wildly talked about amongst the students of the studio while I was there. I can't speak on behalf of the actual women brought up in any of the poster articles, but as students, we heard about these stories of inappropriate interactions and treated them like rumors, and things of the sort like any minor would. We were young and didn't know any better and just tried to talk to each other through our problems. Problems like when one of the girls would mention they felt Tyler made a move on them during one of the many choreography sessions Dory brought him in on to work with and set dances, or a private message they received from him social media, or messages, applications, and texts, scared that girls might lose a place in a dance, which was the usual punishment for basically anything. No one would actually speak up. I'm not familiar with who the girls went to or what teachers they went to for help, but it was most definitely talked about throughout the studio by the students. Try to think about how a young girl could accuse the director's son of sexual harassment when they felt that their future and their dance education was at stake. I personally had an issue when I was 16 years old. My uncle and my grandmother passed away within 10 weeks of each other. I was made to choose whether I could come to a company rehearsal or my grandfather's funeral, which again was just weeks after my family just lost my uncle and was still grieving. If I missed rehearsal, I was out of the show. I ended up trying to make both and actually missed part of the funeral because a 16-year-old at the studio, I was hoping to make it as a professional dancer one day. I felt like my life would have been over if I didn't make rehearsal and perform in that show. And that's how many students felt. After deciding to leave the studio to pursue my dance education at a professional level, trainee under a company, I was told I would never have a professional career or work in the industry, and basically I was told I would never have anything, and I was dismissed. As a teenager, this completely broke my spirit and left me in a pretty bad place. That was from Dory Matkowski. This was the kind of stress, pressure, and mental abuse we had to endure, all because we felt it was the best place to get our dance training, sort of like the mom said before. Of course, everyone on the company team wanted to be there and train, but we were scared about speaking up, and what made us uncomfortable to a teacher, or having to choose between a funeral and a rehearsal. This is just one of the many stories that most, if not all, of the students had while training at Dance Dynamics. Personally, I would just like to say thank you for coming and representing your studio, because I would do the same thing. Dory liked me in high school. She did, and she helped me, and she cast me, and she talked to me nice, and she was great. But the way she treated my friends was unspeakable. And the stories that they had, and the fact that the Dory fear is real. And no one wanted to speak about it. And I have spoke to former and current teachers who worked with her, and none of them knew anything because no one would say anything, because the Dory fear is real. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Tanya Yono. I've never really done this. Never stood or said anything in front of a room full of people. I do want to start with, we sympathize with you, 1,000,000%. We do not condone anything.
Okay, would you please address your...
We do not condone anything that the victims are saying. We do not condone Tyler's actions. What I can speak from is just the studio and my experience with Dory. It hasn't been negative. I have 3 girls growing up, and all 3 of them are at the studio. I've never feared Dory. I've never thought for a minute that me leaving my kids there over 6 hours a day, leaving her there thinking anything. She's 14. I have a 14, 8, and 7-year-old, and they're all at that studio. What I can say is it is a safe environment. I grew up in the Walled Lake area, so I personally know Tyler, never affiliated with him. And again, I do not condone any of his actions. He has never been at that studio. He has never taught at that. Maybe back when he was a minor, probably, when he was growing up. From my knowledge, I know he's been out of that studio since he was 18. He has come and done the lighting and whatnot, but never taught our girls, never had one-on-one encounters with them, ever. Our studio is safe. Our studio has made a big difference, not only in the Walled Lake community, but all over. I just wanted to state that whatever is going on, we know, we've called the department And Dory's not under investigation, neither is Dance Dynamics. Tyler, he's one thing. None of us standing here condone his actions. None of us. And our hearts do go out to every victim. We're just here, like the last lady stated, we're supporting our studio. We're supporting our kids. We're supporting the passion that our kids have to dance, to shine, to grow. That's it.
Thank you.
See a hand. Yes. Couldn't see the face, but I saw a hand.
Good evening. My name is Ben Henry. I'm an attorney for the East Bay Village Condominium Association. And if you want me to make my comments now, Mr. Mayor, I'll make those. Do you want me to wait until that comes up on the agenda? Certainly. So one of the other issues before you this evening is a final judgment in the lawsuit of East Bay Village versus Santadas versus Walled Lake. This judgment represents an agreement that we've reached with the developer. We would like to think that the city will agree to the terms that we've reached as well here. I want to stress that this agreement doesn't allow East Bay Village to construct any new units. What we're looking to do is have the existing units that haven't been built. There's a number of buildings that haven't been built in quite a long time. I know that you're familiar with the development. We're looking to have those built in a reasonably timely fashion to make sure that that is done. Of course, they would have to be brought up to code, but we're not looking for any other types of changes with regard to the location of the units, those types of things. One of the issues that may not be readily apparent in the agreement that you had presented is the issue of how the fact that this development is not completed at this point affects the financing for the co-owners of the association or the potential owners of the association, which is because these buildings have not been completed, this is considered an incomplete project for conventional financing. And so when co-owners go to get financing for a new loan, or when people go to get financing to try and purchase a unit in the association, that incomplete project status is a strike against them for achieving the financing that they may need to purchase or refinance. So this is structured to remove from the different phases the incomplete buildings so that the phases that are in existence and the units that are completed are considered completed phases and will help the community get the financing that it needs and those who want to move into the community to get the financing that they need as well. So again, we encourage you to strongly consider entering into this. And we will still be here, and I will stay here. The attorney for Santadas is here as well, and we'll stay in case there's any questions when that arises on your agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I may, if you want to discuss this now as opposed to later, considering the attorney has already spoken, or we can wait until it comes up on the agenda.
I think with the number of people that we've got in the audience that want to talk, let's at least finish up audience participation.
And then we can move it forward.
And then if we want to move it forward under council reports or something, we can do that. Okay?
Very well.
I thank you gentlemen for being patient. Okay, the lady in the back.
Okay. Hello, my name is Taylor Dalton. I live at 688 Dora Drive, and I am not a personal victim of Tyler Matkowski or Dory Matkowski, but I did attend Walled Lake Western, so I have quite a bit of knowledge of kind of what she did within the school system, and really the intimidation she inflicted upon a lot of my friends and a lot of other students. She did have a lot of pull within our school, and so it does not surprise me that many high schoolers and children felt terrified to speak up because of her influence in the Walled Lake Western School performing arts. And I would just like to say that if even one of these stories is true, it's one too many. Crap. To hear the stories of my friends and what they've experienced, If one of them is true, it's one too many. I don't care if your child was personally affected. That's amazing for you. But there are many that were affected in that studio, in my school, associated with Dory Matkowski and Tyler Matkowski, and it's unacceptable. It's her son. She has pull. We have proof that he was there within April of 2019. There was a post that was made that he was involved with Dance Dynamics. And I appreciate the dance moms coming forward and saying that they support and they have heart for the victims that have spoken up. But you can't deny that Dory has been associated. And if she knew about this, if there were allegations that came forward in 2002 that were covered up, but he was suspended, she would know about that. She would know that her son was suspended and what he was suspended for, and she still allowed him to come into the studio, to work with children, to photograph them, and then allow his company to come forward and work with them additionally. So I thank the Walled Lake City Council for all of the support that they've given to victims, and I think the stance that you've made is very important, and it speaks volumes to not only victims, but allies as well. And again, if one of these stories is true, it's one too many. Thank you.
To speak on agenda item attorney's report number 2, Dina Potter. I wanted to start out by saying that that ballot proposal that I had submitted came together from all the hard work of the residents, and it amends the charter to add a retroactive 10-year term limit to the position of city manager. This committee is not just Dina Potter. This is the will of 350 Walled Lake residents who gladly signed the initiatory petition in a matter of 4 days, none of whom have a 5-year guaranteed contract that will continue to bleed the city. They have taken action to rectify the recklessness and neglect of the city council in allowing Witt's ridiculous contract to be ratified, amended, and then extended all before it even expired. The strong and very slanted response in opposition to this proposal by the city attorney is an example of the blind loyalty and support for the city manager and his outrageous guaranteed contract. The fact that his memo claims that Witt would be owed $500,000 in benefits for a year, even if the ballot initiative goes through, he is turned out by operation of law, shows the absurdity of these type of airtight contract sweetheart deals given to Witt and his cronies. This proposal will not cost the city more money, contrary to Venerian's blatant self-serving propaganda. The ridiculousness of the city attorney doing the investigation on the committee secretary because his boss doesn't like the proposal. Venerian's attacks, targeted attacks, including inappropriately surmising that certain council candidates are running because they have an axe to grind, instead of the reality that they want to affect change, indicates the city hall's absolute disregard for the will of the people. Venerian's outrageous, biased, and spiteful response to this ballot initiative shows me one thing. This administration is scared, and they should be. Let us have our voice. We will no longer be stifled. This is our city, Venerian. I don't know where you live, but you may have manipulated the system to keep us off the November ballot, but our voices will be heard in March, if not sooner.
My name is Jeff Rondo. I've lived here for 30 years. I'm ashamed. I'll give you my address when Mr. Witt gives me his.
Would you please?
I'll give you my address when Mr. Witt gives me his.
Pardon me?
I'll give you mine when he gives me
You will
his.
give your address if you want to.
I don't have to give my address.
Correct.
I don't legally have to give my address. Everybody in this room knows who I am.
Show some respect, sir. Aren't you running for something? You give your name.
I don't have to give
and
my
your
address. I'm not gonna give my address.
Well, then I guess you're not gonna speak.
I'm gonna stand here for 15 minutes.
No, you won't.
Mayor, I'll give you my address.
Okay.
I'll give you my address.
Go ahead.
My address is 38811 Steeplechase, 3 miles from here.
Right, not in this city though.
Well, I'm not required to live in the city. You're required to live in the city. of
My address is
Toronto.
1159 Wabasso.
Okay, before you speak any
Potter
further,
doesn't live in
give
the
your
city.
address.
so she
He just
lives in
did.
Toronto.
I just gave you my address.
The garages.
The reality here is this.
Keep your word.
I just did.
You did. Dennis, please.
I gave you my address.
Thank you.
All right, I also had a heart attack a couple years ago.
Did you give me your address?
Yes, he did.
I can't hear you with all
My
the-
address is 1159 Wabasso Street.
Thank you.
Okay?
Okay.
I also had a heart attack when I worked here, and I lived here. Okay? I still live here, but I worked here. The day after I came back from having my heart attack, Mr. City Manager invited me into his office, wanted to know what happened to me. I told him I had a heart attack. He then kind of chuckled and laughed and said I was kind of fat. And I said, yeah, I'm kind of fat, I agree with you. He said, you know what, I don't have to pay you, but I'm gonna pay you, because I'm a nice guy. What I see in this room is a bunch of people that don't like each other. We don't have anybody here who likes each other, we don't have anybody here who likes each other. And what I've seen since this man's come on the scene is this not like escalate dramatically. We should all be ashamed of ourselves. We have a beautiful gem in Oakland County. We have children to raise. We gotta find a way to fix this. And the number one contributing factor to this mess is Mr. L. Dennis Witt. He causes trouble, he creates diversity, he creates dissension in the ranks, he pits people against each other. I've seen it time and time again. He doesn't live here, he doesn't belong here, and he shouldn't be here making more money than the governor of the state of Michigan. We can't afford to stay in. We just can't afford it. It's just too much money. And what I think, to be honest with you, is all you were ashamed of the fact that you've already fell to his knees. You've already given in to him. He's played you. Now you don't know a way out. That's what I see. I'm gonna give you the way out. These people are gonna show you the way out in November. Thank you for your time. 1159 Wabasso.
Set? Ready?
Pardon me?
We good? To go?
You're good to go with your name and address and your 3 minutes.
Rick Greenwell, 395 West Wall Lake Drive. Hello, I'm here once again to express some of my concerns. First, the last meeting, after Glendy being asked about a couple of large financial expenditures, Mr. Witt lashed out, and Mr. Costanzo, and at the audience, with personal affronts. You seem to think you're immune to it, but I'm sorry, I don't think you are. Something he seems to be comfortable doing. Why does this council continue to allow this behavior? Why? I want to remind council that you appointed him to this job. That makes him your responsibility. His actions are a direct reflection of what this council deems acceptable. Your inability to control this unruly behavior seems to indicate your approval of it. People have taken notice. If a small handful of people can gather enough signatures in just a few days to get term limits on the city manager put on the ballot, what does that tell you? People are taking notice. And they're speaking out. With 3 council seats up for grabs in November, in my opinion, it would behoove at least 3 council members to start listening to the residents here in Walled Lake. Second, this campus project proposal for the lot next door, we can't even maintain our current infrastructure in parks. Personally, I think it's only prudent that we consider selling this property with the hopes of attracting some type of business or businesses that will generate revenue through taxes that will help the city start on the road to recovery for all of its residents and future residents for years to come. Now's not the time to take on another liability. Lastly, I want to make it perfectly clear. I support our police and fire departments 100%. I have heard nothing negative about your department, and I'm glad about that. Jim, you guys saved my life, literally. And I have thanked you and Bass for that too. I think we have good police and fire here now. I hope we continue to have good police and fire, and I will still support you in the future. These rumors flying around are nonsense. There's also some rumors that I'm a disgruntled employee. Well, let's clear the air, shall we? Also not true. I did used to work here a long time ago. I got laid off. I found a much better job in a large city. End of story. If anybody's got any questions, ask away.
Why'd you come back?
Send me your questions. If I'm disgruntled about anything, it would be about the lack of transparency right here in this room. The city infrastructure and city services should be front and center at every meeting. Both are on the decline and should be addressed. I think we can do better, and my hopes that in November, we will. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else? Mr. Wilson.
Want me to let out later? Oh, okay. Excuse me, sorry.
My name is Neil Wolfson. I live at 565 Wynwood Court. I've heard a lot of the comments and just wanted to bring up a couple of points. I don't know how many of the people here have actually taken the time to go to the City Walled Lake website and download or look at the past since 2012 to 2018 the audited financial statements for the city. And I wonder how many have actually downloaded the 2021 budget to see what's in there. If you did that, you would see that it's a good thing this fire and police tax passed. Because from after 2010, we lost a lot of revenue. And then I think it went up to about 2014 before we could get 2014, 2015, 16, when it actually started collecting the police and the fire. So this city was behind, if you take what the revenue was in 2010, the taxes were about $33 million, $3,200,000. Now that went all the way down to about $2,400. $2,400,000, sorry. If you didn't get that fire and police tax passed, it would have cut back a lot of the fire and the police. Fire and police cost us about just under $3 million a year combined. All I ask is you go look at the financial statements. The numbers don't lie. There's a lot to look at. But if you also look at the auditor's statements, you'll see we have lost a lot of money in the water that we were billed for. Finally, part of that was corrected. If you also look at what happened, the city council, I think it was in 2010, realized 29, that they needed a professional city manager. And that's when they hired, I think, Mr. Whip. Now, it's easy to criticize, and I understand some of the things that are happening. But I want to say, I talked to Sandra Bullock and went over about the budget and some of the other things. He was very cooperative, and some of the information, I downloaded some of the information. This city council, since 2009 and 10, and since Dennis Witt came aboard as city manager, and Jennifer, Chelsea, and Sandra, and was it Colleen Coogan beforehand, they had to make a lot of tough decisions, and they did. And I think they should be commended on what they have done, because they got this city out of a big, deep hole. Now, there might be some things you don't like, but they did do that. There are still issues, and they're addressing these issues. That's all I have to say. Now, if you want to, I brought some stuff, I went through it, just go through it, download it, look at the numbers, look at the information, and then tell me that they're not doing their job. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else? Yes, I see one more hand there.
Hi, Ryan Woods, 111 Chestnut Ridge. Wanted to talk to you about the sidewalk project that's in our neighborhood that we just completed. I'm currently the homeowners association. I've been there for 3 years, and for the last 2 years, as you know, as I explained before in May, we've been working for 2 years to try to get sidewalks fixed and replaced in our neighborhood, as it's been 20 years since work's been done. 2 years ago, we started looking to see if we could flatten some cement slabs out to see if we could do it in a cost-effective manner to actually look at the common areas within our neighborhood that we're responsible for. We took a look at the ordinances, and then actually within there it tells you that sidewalks and the maintenance are actually responsible for the people that actually own the cement slabs in front. We own the common areas, so we started looking at that. Found out that cement straightening was too much, so we started going down the route to see what the costs were for replacement. As we were going for the cost of replacement last year, we found out Glenwood subdivision actually worked with the city to come up with a plan to redo their area. With that, we kind of piggybacked on the concept to say, you know what, if the city can chip in some money, we could actually look and get costs for the rest of the sidewalks in our neighborhood. With that, we worked with the city, got the cost down on the cement companies, talked to all of our neighbors, said, hey, here's the price that we're getting per square foot. Would you like to get a separate contract to redo your driveway to tap in and do our project at the same time? With that, we've got 7 driveways replaced, over 100 sidewalks replaced, and our area is looking very good now. We have 4 houses that have switched hands. One neighbor has moved into the north area because they like our neighborhood so much. Our property value is up. The $8,000 that the city kicked in really justified $50,000 worth of cement expenditure to help that make it happen. And with those 4 house sales, you're gonna get return on your investment in a year and a half on the raised taxes because of changing hands. So I wanted to thank the unanimous decision from the mayor and the city council for approving that back in May. We're completed. We appreciate the city's help in getting that job done. And I especially wanted to point out Dan Ladd, because when he went through and walked the sidewalks with me, he was a stickler for what sidewalk needed to get replaced, which one was approved to be in the city's program, which ones weren't. He kept you right on the budget. So appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else in the audience? Yeah.
Love you, girl.
Yes, I'm gonna talk about. Okay. It's Piper. My address is 1745 Piper Ryan, 1745 Chateau Road, over in Commerce. I'm one of the women who piloted the Change.org petition about dance dynamics, and I'm a co-organizer of the protest that we had last month, as well as the one that's going to take place this Sunday. In pursuit of justice, the most common question I get, if this is about Tyler, why are you going after the studio? I'd like to take this opportunity to make that very clear. Dory Matkowski, owner of Dance Dynamics Performing Arts Center, has partnered in the past with her son Tyler Matkowski, owner of Star Studded Productions. Disguised as a photographer, Tyler has used his business to lure and isolate victims into vulnerable scenarios, allowing him to take advantage of his unsuspecting prey. The Laura address for his business is the same as the studio here in Walled Lake. While Tyler currently resides in Florida, and his mother has made every attempt to disassociate her business from his,
Tyler has spent several years as a guest choreographer, photographer, and consultant for Dance Dynamics. It should also be noted that Tyler is listed as the director on Dance Dynamics' Lara page. As a woman and a mother and one of Tyler's victims, I have a moral obligation to this community that I love to bring the whole story to light. In an effort to preserve the ongoing investigation, I'm going to refrain from disclosing specific details to my case. However, I will tell you this. I spent a significant amount of time during high school surrounded by Dory and Tyler and the theater crew as I was involved in performing arts extensively. I was no longer attending Walled Lake Western in 2002 when Tyler was a junior. It was that year he was accused of sexual misconduct with a classmate, which resulted in a 1-week suspension from school. Instead of returning to school after that suspension, Dory used her studio to cultivate a homeschool program so that her son could finish out his education without having to return to the scene of his alleged crime. This program is still in operation today, as you know. This program is marketed to families who want to focus primarily on performing arts while completing their regular K-12 education without having to attend a traditional brick-and-mortar public school. In essence, this woman has profited from what began with her son's lewd behavior. Unfortunately, for myself and all the victims that followed the incident in 2002, Tyler gained confidence. His behavior escalated significantly. Hundreds of individuals were on the receiving end of what I can only describe as a creepy introduction inquiry via Facebook Messenger, email, or text outlining his photography abilities as a way to connect with his acquaintances. He shared suggestive nude photographs from previous models to outline what he was capable of producing. Whether or not he had permission to share those intimate portraits is still under investigation. There are recent accusations ranging from inappropriate, predatory, suggestive language, all the way down to sexual assault, some of which allegedly took place at the studio. I have spent years battling depression and severe anxiety while burying Tyler's crime, and specifically the last 6 weeks dissecting the details of my assault and reflecting on my own questions and feelings. Why did this happen to me? At this point, is justice worth pursuing? Who would believe me? If the adults, including Dory, who witnessed Tyler's lewd behavior back in the early 2000s had worked diligently to protect me and my peers against who we now know is a sexual predator, perhaps I would not have to bear the label as a victim today. In Dory's original July 9th outreach email to her dance families, as she put it, the important people, she openly admitted her knowledge of her son's misconduct. Although she doesn't specifically indicate how long she's harbored that knowledge, as a former student of her studio, I can attest that as far back as the year 2000, she was well aware of what was going on behind the scenes. Dory has attempted to cover up the viral Facebook thread from which this story blossomed. Hundreds of individuals, both men and women, have come forward with stories of abuse pertaining to both Tyler and Dory. These stories continue to filter through, making their way into the hands of law enforcement. This isn't going away. Dory has asked her remaining constituents not to draw attention to the thread on social media. She's even offered what can only be described as an excuse that her son is seeking medical attention from a holistic facility in Atlanta for his behavior. I have full faith in the multi-county investigation that's taking place right now. My hope is that Tyler is brought to justice and Dory is held accountable for the 20+ years of cover-up. Make no mistake, this woman is lying. This family is dangerous. In conjunction with the women that are here joining me today, my family, my friends, my attorney, my therapist, and the support of the 1,320 individuals who signed our petition thus far, I ask you to please consider what's at stake here. This is a matter of public safety. We wouldn't allow these types of predators to infiltrate our community on any other front. A dance studio where children gather to learn, perfect their craft is no different. As concerned citizens of this community, we have not broken any laws. During our efforts to share the story that brings me here today, our community deserves better. I leave you with this. 3 things cannot be hidden long: the sun, the moon, and the truth. Thanks.
end of audience participation. I would like to thank everyone who talked, regardless of what side or what you had to say. Right now, we're going to take a short recess. I hope we can close the door and close the window and allow our air conditioning system to work instead of going outside and cooling off the outside air. We have it set on 65 and it can't keep up because the windows and doors are open. So let's take about a 10-15 and then we'll come back.
Yeah, this door? Yeah. Where's this door? Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna pass out this.
Make things exciting.
Yeah. Try to find a better spot to charge.
Hey.
All right. All right.
Okay. Cool. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. You know what's weird? I've never heard that. It's bad. You know, afraid of somebody. I just stopped going because I've never been to the bus. Because forever. Putting stuff as, you know, our applications in here.
Oh, yeah, sure. I recognize
We'll see. It'll be better than us to do that.
Oh, God. One of your many Facebook followers freaking we gotta get him.
Look like you're lost.
Oh, yeah, all right.
No, I know you told me a little bit. You tell me all.
It's beautiful. I don't mind. I'm going to post it.
You guys might want to redo that. I don't know if I was in it. Or make a good blooper. I don't know. No, we just need that. We already did so much work. Oh yeah. Dude, I was so hot. I got pictures of this guy like right here, and I'm like breathing on his neck. I said, move forward, but I know he can't. I'm like, Jesus, I'm against the wall like this. Broadcasting. I don't think we said anything to him. You know Justin? Get a hobby or something. Say I am, you just thought you didn't partnering up. You know, It's like a year.
I do it in my briefing inside the car.
Very similar.
I know it's a motion.
That's right. Thank you. How big's your garage? You don't have anything that works? Okay. Okay. You know Derek Norman? He is the sensory. I don't really he is
thought I was here for a swim.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. We don't give wicks here very often.
You were dangerously close to my bedtime.
Yeah, I got it.
What are you gonna do? I realize it's a problem.
So are they,
Yes. I don't want to hear what I say on the lab. There's a silent guy.
Glad we got them all in the direction. All the guys in the hallway out there.
I know what's going on tomorrow. I know which line city council.
I haven't been in touch with them lately the last couple of years. Between us and where you're located, where they're located, everything's success results are where you come from, where you used to do. Oh, in your book, gotta go, this Saturday, around the world party. I don't even know about it. It's also, kind of choose my battle. I want to sit down and say hi to them real quick. Hey, stranger. They started having to say hi to you. How you been, man? It's been for like 2 years. That was only get a guy driving a truck that's next time you're out on the road. Everything's good with you? Next time you're out and say hi. I forgot about that. I don't know. All I see is great on the side of the road. Cool, man. Anything promising in front of you? They got anything with the man? It's a weird city, man. City, I don't know about it. But I gotta go. Nice seeing you. You know I always take care of you. You know what it's yeah. You told me that. Yeah.
Okay, since we're already almost 2 hours into the meeting, if the rest of the council has no objections, as we go to the vacant part of council report, I guess, can we do the police promotion that's under the city manager report? And then we have the attorneys here from East Bay. And I believe someplace in the audience, I think I saw Mr. Schaefer with Beechwood. So if we can do those three, if council has no problem.
Let's do it.
Okay? Everybody in agreement?
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor, I will, we'll deal with the police promotion and so they can get on the.
Yes, that's next.
Eat it up so much.
I promised them, there is the warmest clothing, so I'm gonna.
Tonight, I'm gonna let the chief, introduce our candidate for promotion, but for tonight, I would like to acknowledge that we have the police chief, who's also our resident from Nixon, Ron Moore, back in the back. Sergeant, we had a pretty serious incident at the villa. Literally had a knife fight between a couple of folks and got cut pretty bad. And the scene was like 3 blocks wide, but it was a knife fight. People were bleeding. And I rolled up as the company safety director. My job that day was to bring them coffee. And I did that. We brought them coffee and they all came up and they handed the case. And the two chiefs put it together. But he was a sergeant. And he locked it to the top, lieutenant, and the rest is history. But he lives in.
And he lives in Wall Lake.
So Wall Lake's got 2 chiefs, okay? So, and we're good like that. What I'd like to do is let the council, refresh the council's memory, is that we hired a young woman here who had spent 10 years in the Canton Police Department. And she came to us looking for a job. She's got children, her husband works in Canton, he's a sergeant, Canton, he's on the SWAT team, he teaches guns, and all that kind of stuff. Heather, as you all know, is first name is Heather May Sergeant, she made lieutenant, and the chief's gonna tell you all that, but she's also our first female lieutenant in Wall Lake. She will be she is now, we've already made that, this is a ceremonial thing, she is the first female captain for police for Wall Lake, and if I'm not mistaken, maybe the 2 chiefs can enlighten me, she may be the highest ranking police woman in the county.
I think she's our first captain too.
Certainly first captain, but the point is if she didn't go home after all of this, is she around here?
She's behind you.
Behind me, oh, imagine she's by the door. Chief, would you do the ceremony and tell the folks about Heather's been with us for all those years, gone through the ranks, gone to school, got her bachelor's degree, worked halfway through a master's degree, and over the Eastern, the 2 chiefs went there. But tell us about Heather and what she's done for the police department.
Well, first of all, I want to make sure she's completely red when I ask her to come up and stand up here with me. She can suffer with me. Certainly ups and downs in police work, and tonight is up. We're promoting one of our own, and I'm very proud of that. Heather has made herself stand out in our department, and I'm very proud to stand up here with her. Heather is currently a patrol lieutenant with the Walled Lake Police Department. She's been in law enforcement for over 18 years. She doesn't look it, but she's been a police officer for over 18 years. Heather holds a bachelor's degree from Mount University in criminal justice and is currently attending Eastern Michigan University. She's on task to graduate with a master's degree in technology studies with a concentration in homeland security and emergency management next year. Heather's attended many professional development courses, including Eastern Michigan School Police Staff and Command Executive Leadership Program, as well as the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police, Executives, and New Chiefs School. These classes have helped Heather enhance her leadership with the department. She also serves as a firearms instructor, taser instructor, ALICE instructor, a liaison to the Walled Lake School District, and our community policing liaison officer. Heather would like to thank her charming husband, Canton Township Sergeant Eric Kolke, who is on SWAT training in Gaylord this week, so that's why he keeps on here tonight. And her 3 amazing children, Dominic, Olivia, and Haley. You'll see 2 good-looking little girls out here. One. Dominic just went to school. When Heather's not at the department, she enjoys spending time with her family, camping, kayaking, and cooking. And cooking's pretty good. Heather's excited to have an opportunity to lead the officers in the department. She's already doing that. She's going to continue to do that. Tonight we're promoting her to captain, making her the highest ranking female officer in our department's history, and I believe the only female captain in Oakland County. Deputy Clerk Gross, can we swear her in, please?
I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of Michigan, the Charter and ordinances of the City of Walled Lake, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of police captain according to the best of my ability. Congratulations.
Just to show the support that Heather has, almost half our department's here tonight. I don't know if you snuck out because it's a little warm, but that's the support she has from the men and women in the rank and file in our department. I have no questions about her ability to lead.
You know, before all the police officers leave and the city people, I'd just like to make a comment as I was thinking tonight when you were introducing Heather and Dennis was stating. Mr. Webb probably came to us, well, I know he came to us with the most master's degree of any city manager we ever had. But what amazes me about him is, and Paul, I think you can attest to this because you've gotten 3 master's degrees since he's been here. He encourages, he supports, and he wants his people to go on and get higher education and improve themselves. And he doesn't show fear of that. I came from employment where, because I had a master's degree, I was kind of like, oh, you know, she's after my job. And we appreciate that, and I need everybody is working on their degrees, their masters, and the more that they do and the more that we can help them, the more it benefits our community and the knowledge. So I'm glad to hear that Heather's working on his, and congratulations to everybody else who is too. And it really means a lot, and I appreciate it. So, to all of you folks, thank you.
All right, guys, good to go. Thank you.
Ready to get back to work?
Yeah.
You guys can go with mommy, I'm doing the takeover. I never knew the police department could be alone. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, thank you, I'm almost right.
Hey, can you give a picture of how they're high by
Okay, Van, you wanna take over the next step for East Bay?
Yes, as Mr. Henry has already explained, we have the city is a party to a lawsuit. We were brought in as a third party. The lawsuit primarily concerns a dispute between East Bay and the developer who owns several undeveloped lots within the East Bay development. The reason that the city was brought into the lawsuit as a third party is because there are certain approvals that are required by the city in order for East Bay and the developer to achieve the various legal objectives that they're pursuing in their lawsuit. So the city doesn't necessarily really have a dog in this particular fight. The developer and East Bay have reached a settlement in the case. Basically, the case involves the undeveloped condominium units. They were converted into common elements, and then the owner of the units filed suit to try and get some legal rights to develop those units that had been converted into common elements by East Bay. As Mr. Henry has indicated, the settlement proposal for city purposes would simply allow that the condominium be completed as originally approved by the city. There's not going to be any new or additional buildings or units built. They're going to be built in the same location, same footprint, same floor plan, same number of units, same exterior facade, everything. It simply allows would allow the developer to build the unbuilt units in accordance with the original plans that were approved by the city. So there's not going to be anything changed. If something was changed, then they would have to come back to the city and seek approval for those changes. So that is essentially what the lawsuit is about, and what the settlement proposal would effectuate if it was approved by the city. So I don't have any legal objection to what's being proposed by way of the settlement. As indicated, it's simply, from the city's perspective, just allows them to complete the condominium as originally approved by the city.
Were these the parcels that were removed from the tax rolls and they're now back on, or is it a different parcel within East Bay?
These common elements, I believe they were taken off the tax rolls by the county at one point because they had been converted into common elements and they were no longer taxable units, individually taxable units at that point. What this would do is if the units are converted back into units, back into buildable condominium units, they would then be taxable units once again.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
There's an issue there that probably should be put on the paper. I'm going to check your data on that. When they were converted, or when the association didn't inform us that they intended to revoke their right, I suppose, and make them non-taxable. Well, I think you probably remember offhand that we were paid. So we're going to have to pay back, was it like 28,000? 21,000. We had to pay back because we collected the money, but then they declared that it was a common element, it's not taxable under the condominium. What this would do, I believe, puts it back, makes the housing scheme of things correctly. But we were in a position looking to pay money back that we had gotten paid to the county that collected the tax. When they invoked that concept, the association did, then we, as a city, were on the hook for paying back money that we got paid for, was quote, not taxed. I'm hoping that all of this fixes that, so we're not paying any back. If I don't know the answer to that,
I I can't answer that for sure.
I can't expect that they would be voluntarily paying us, you know, for 21,000, and I actually don't know offhand if they withheld the money or we paid them back. We paid them back.
Which says it resolves all pending issues and closes the case, so.
Unless we already paid it back.
I mean, it may do that if you vote or go along with it, but if we got
There is a-
paid and we had to pay it back, and now we're back to where it was, it seems like there's a little an issue that, you know, ought to be on the table, as that transparency work out.
Would the attorney like to come up?
Somebody get a free ride for a couple of years, it should have been taxable for putting it back. Now, I understand that they would report if it's sort of a consent judgment or a agreeable judgment, but the loser comes out here, the loser here is the other taxpayer. The city's losing 21,000.
Sure, so the association, and I'll let brother counsel here speak with regard to the developer. The association is not making any demand for a return of any type of previously paid taxes.
The county did.
The county may have.
When you invoke, or whoever did that, I don't know, maybe, you know, it kicks in an automatic. We have to pay them back because you declared whatever period that was, that it was non-taxable under the condominium law. But if we'd already gotten paid by the county, then the county said, send us a check back. And that's essentially what we had to do. I got it missed by 2,000 to 21,000. That's a substantial amount of money, you know, and the other taxpayers have to make it up. So it seems to me that somebody ought to make good on that.
Sure, so let me clarify, I think, a couple of different things. One, this doesn't involve all of the unbuilt units. So I think there's a total of 7 unbuilt buildings. And part of, I think, what you're speaking of is there was an amendment with regard to, I believe, 2 of the unbuilt buildings, where the association declared that those have been converted by operation of law into general common elements. Those particular buildings are not involved in this settlement. That's right. So, and I think with regard to the other buildings that are involved, I think the taxes have been paid.
So I know I don't have it with me, I know he paid $63,000.
Well, I think that the council's got it right. I think that's the one where we have an issue with. If I don't know the answer, I gotta put it on the table. We should clarify that. I won't tell the council not to do anything. And, you know, if it's as you said, and it was declared and the law is still in effect, then as a matter of law, we have to take it back. And I think we already have taken it back. But if we're putting them back in the tax roll, and somebody chooses the condominium law to kind of get in the other taxpayer's pocket, then that's my job to say something.
Right, yeah. And so
You may be right.
I do believe that particular issue has to do with these other 2 buildings. I think it was 19 and 21. So if you were actually to go on site or to look at a satellite picture, you can see that some years ago, I think it was about 2007, foundations for a lot of these buildings were actually installed. And then of course we hit the downturn and everything kind of stalled, and now here we are many years later trying to get this ironed out and having those buildings that already have existing foundations be constructed. You're right. So there's 2 other buildings with regard to a 4th amendment where the association, and our firm on behalf of the association, filed that notice of those 2 buildings converting by operation of law into general common elements and therefore not being taxable units anymore is the argument there. Those 2 buildings are not being put back into development by this agreement. This is solely with regard to the other buildings that we haven't recorded that amendment to. The argument that we were having and that we're trying to avoid having to have that decision made about whether or not those are still actually taxable units or whether or not they're general common elements and thus ultimately affecting the city as well. That's the argument that this agreement really kind of addresses, whereas if we go in and Sant Hadash is correct, they're still taxable units, and that's what they're there for. If the association is correct, they're not taxable units and they're similar to these other ones. So what we've done instead, and what we think is in the best interest of not only the developer, the condominium, but the city as well, is here's an agreement that these will be built within a certain amount of time. Because that really is kind of the hurdle that the association was having with regard to previous attempts at getting these developed and reaching an agreement with the developer, which is you kind of wanted an open-ended commitment in our opinion. And again, I'll let Mr. Village speak, but this agreement sets some time limits, sets some different requirements for the development, make sure it's done in a way that, again, it addresses the financing issues that exist for the community as a whole. So I don't have any knowledge of it having any kind of tax effect with regard to those two buildings.
We can check on that, so any decision you have to make tonight or want to make, we can check on that. And pretty quickly, I think, to see which buildings are. But my comments are in no way an objection to what you're doing. I think the city council gets the idea with finishing up the undeveloped area, where literally the foundation is sticking out of the ground, and actually a hazard to some extent. It's better for the community, it's better for East Bay, and certainly if they can get better financing, property values go up. It's a whole lot of benefits to that. So I'm not speaking against it, just want to make sure that we're not agreeing to something here that's going to take more of our tax dollars that we're entitled to as a community. That's it.
Yeah, one option would be for council to approve the settlement conditionally upon confirming that the two buildings that are being referenced here, I think it was 19 and 21 that you mentioned.
I think so. I can double check.
Are the ones at issue as far as us having to pay money back to the county, and that those are not going to be affected by this settlement or tax rate in this county.
We're good with that.
Any other questions that we can address? Okay, thank you.
So with a clarification, the 21,000 we will not have to pay back.
No, we've already paid it.
We already did, those two buildings paid back.
And that was on
the two buildings only.
Well, that's what he just said. I'm gonna check that.
The other seven.
Finance director's gonna check that like first thing tomorrow, so we'll know pretty quickly with the more, and we'll tell you the city attorney, see if that's an issue, but I don't think it is. I think he gave it.
Okay. Are we ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the, issue with the East Bay Condominium Association.
Support.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Costanzo?
Yes.
Locke?
Yes.
Lublin?
Yes.
Osnick?
Yes.
Robertson?
Yes.
Ambrose?
Yes.
Hackler?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I believe you're all set. I thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Thank you, Council.
Thanks for moving us up.
Okay. Did Beechwood get tired and go home, or are we still here?
There.
Front and center, boys. Dan, would you like to address this?
Yes, this is the Beechwood Development Agreement, as council will recall at the last meeting. Council conditionally approved the development as a planned unit development, subject to the condition that the developer execute a development agreement as approved by city council. Since the last meeting, we have been negotiating it or finalizing the terms of a development agreement. We have that, I believe that should be attached, included in your council packet. I've reviewed it for the proper legal form, and it contains all the provisions that we would normally require in a development agreement of this sort. It specifically speaks to some of the specific development issues that council had talked about earlier, such as requiring them to prioritize the construction of the stormwater facilities, surrendering any riparian rights that might attach to the, there's no lake access and boat docking and so forth by the condominium residents. Payment of the required performance guarantees, and also with limitation on outdoor uses and owner responsibility to maintain all the site facilities such as the stormwater, the roads, the sidewalk, so on and so forth, so that won't be a financial burden on the city going forward. That's something that the condominium development association would be responsible for. So that's those are the main points of the development agreements, and it's now for you for your final consideration and action.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the agreement?
Having read this document about 2 or 3 different times, I concur with what the attorney says, and I will make a motion to approve the PUD agreement for the Beechwood Planned Unit Development.
Is there support?
I'll go with support.
Okay. Is there any further discussion or any discussion on this?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
I'm gonna bring up the same discussion I had at last month's meeting. I do not think that this agreement should be passed. Some of the reasons that I gave at the last council meeting that I'm gonna give at this meeting is the lot size was much smaller than the surrounding homes. The applicant is requesting a variance to the established PUD standards, reduction in minimum side setback to only 5 feet. The proposed sidewalk will place pedestrians in a close proximity to traffic, as outlined in last month's documents. It's stated in the documents that this will create an uninviting atmosphere for residents, discouraging them from utilizing the sidewalk. There's a requested reduction of 441 trees that were required to be replaced. For future flooding potential further downstream, we heard similar promises and assurances involving the PDs from prior city council, planning, and city engineers that, as history has proven, was wrong. It will reduce the property values for the surrounding neighborhoods, having a PUD sardined in between on 3 sides. I believe it is, in my opinion, it's a conflict with our master plan by not maintaining the integrity of the neighborhoods and the green space on that side of the city, the surrounding lot sizes, and more. I also believe that way of life does matter, that this PUD will affect the way of life in a negative way. I also believe that the item provided by the applicant did not compensate for the impact of the requested modifications. And I also believe that the proposed new housing and site amenities do not provide a recognizable benefit to the developments and the residents and city overall. I am opposed to this agreement.
Okay, are there any other comments for this?
I have to disagree with Councilman Costanza. I don't know if you've ever been out there during a rain, but we have a major issue over there with that area flooding. We got 12 plus almost 20 acres of drain across Sparks down through the District H portion. We were able to open up the drainage line into the lake. So there's a major problem over there with water. This is going to take care of that situation. We're fortunate that somebody did want to come and bring us a development, because without that, they could have put up something like 16 to 18 just residential homes, and all the issues would still exist. Okay, property, unfortunately, sooner or later gets developed. We appreciate that people don't want it in their backyard, but they want all the benefits that it brings. But that's not the reality of it, okay? There are houses at one time, as was yours, with virgin lands, which was developed. So I believe the project will be beneficial to the city. We should bring in an increase in our property values in the area. And hopefully that our engineers and everybody has done their due diligence, and we'll have all the issues that we had seen in the past corrected, which was under a different administration and different circumstances and times.
Anyone else? I would also have to agree with Casey that if we didn't put this type of development there, it could have been sold off in individual parcels. Yes, larger lots would have been built, but the water drainage problem would most likely not have been even addressed that it only aggravated the situation. And I would also commend the developer for going ahead and doing the type of work that he's doing to help this situation and hopefully solve the problem as much as possible. You know, maybe that size lot is not conducive to a lot of people. I personally like a large lot, but for new homeowners or empty nesters, I guess that's what I am, but I still like my larger piece of property. But there is a market out there for this, and I really think these people sell. And between their engineers, WRC, our city engineers, everyone seems to think that this will take care of the problem, and I have to have faith in it. So, no, yes, Ben?
I just wanted to say that, though I voted against the project last month, this is a good agreement for the city, and that's what we're voting on today.
Correct. That's what we're voting on today is the agreement, and I think, Van has done a very good job of negotiating and working on this agreement, and definitely is in the best interest of the city, and still allows the developer to go forward and do what they need to do with the property. So, I guess we are ready for a roll call.
Locke?
Yes.
Lublin?
Yes.
Osnick?
Yes.
Robertson?
Yes.
Ambrose?
Yes.
Costanzo?
No.
Ackley?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
So, well, you're all set to begin.
We're ready to roll. Thank you.
We're ready to rock and roll. Okay, now we're really into council reports. Is there anyone from council that?
Trail council report, the trail is still closed, but it's being used.
I was gonna say, you could fool me.
He'll discharge.
That's right.
Yeah. Anyway, but the next step that we have is continuing to do paving of the parking lot and installing the traffic control devices at all of the intersections. That is going to be one of the big projects, especially at Pontiac Trail, where they're going to install what they call a hawk system. There will be a beam that will go across from the west side to the east side halfway, and another one from the east side to the west side halfway. And those signals will be red light, they'll have a green light, they'll have the traffic to go through, there'll be a green light, then there'll be a yellow flashing light, and then when the people need to start to cross, there'll be a red light. And that'll be an always stop for all traffic until the intersection is cleared. The intersection will be striped, it'll meet MDOT standards. That's it.
Okay, there is going to be, what is it, September 17th? That's the walk?
The inaugural ride.
The inaugural ride, walk, or whatever.
Whatever way you want to get across.
That's
if it's finished.
In asking
Wait till late.
John Hensler what time, and he told me sometime between 8 and noon. So I guess the time hasn't been set up. Do we know yet, have they approached the city for a demolition permit?
Yes.
Yes, they
We're
have?
still working on issuing it.
What's that?
We're still working on issuing it.
Okay, but it has been, okay. Alrighty, I think that's all I have. Anyone else have any reports?
Yep, we had a DDA meeting, the report was back that all the streetlights have been changed to LEDs, cost of approximately $17,000. We also will be receiving a rebate from DTE, approximately $5,800. Based on the savings from the LED, we should realize about $10,000 a year savings. So we should be even on that project in about a year and then realize nothing but cost savings after that. So I'd like to commend Dan Ladd and the DPW for handling the actual changing of the lights and not having to farm that out, so that was also additional savings, substantial savings, so to everybody, fine job. That was all. Reports.
All right. Moving on, city manager, you still have a few things left in your report.
I do. Let me take them out of order because they're already out of order. Let me tell you about Iron Labs. The packet you have about Iron Labs is self-explanatory. The instrument was written by the Attorney General of Michigan and through her Assistant Attorney General. My detective in the city marijuana bureau was on shift that day, and she got called to the site. The Michigan State Police, along with the officials from
Use your microphone. Microphone, sir. Thank you.
Michigan State Police were there asking local assistance to the cooperation event. They were executing the order, which is a summary suspension of Iron Lab's state license. They had a state license. What is important to note for you as city council members is they were ever issued a license by the city. State was given them that license based on the prior law, and they were required to get a license, and they were working on that. But they're also required to renew their state license at some point during that renewal process. And even while we were processing it my detective was processing it through the Marijuana Bureau, they found some issues that are outlined in that document. So the city had nothing to do with the closing or the summary suspension of the license. We did not make a complaint. That's a high level kind of a testing facility, and it certainly is outside our scope of our responsibility, but we did participate. So if you saw our officers there, because they were called there in assistance, and so if you hear any of that discussion, they're going to be required as a matter of due process to have a very fast hearing on their license and whether or not they can correct whatever deficiency they had. The state is taking that very serious. The new governor is, she's on the mark. She's taking everything very serious. I'm pretty pleased with her work. Iron Labs, as far as I know, they've been good to us. They've been a good business. We don't really have any issues with the testing, or anything like that. I think they have ways of checking their testing, and that's what brought it up. So other than what's in your packet, we have nothing and no reason to go any further than that. What we will not be doing is we will not be, because that comes through my office, we will not be issuing a license to them until they've resolved their issues with the state for the kind of facility they are. So that's all I've got to say on that. The other issue that I've got, could you come over and hand out the code enforcement reports? I got a code enforcement report that I'm handing out just so you get a look at the new model. There are no issues in there. We don't write tickets unless we have to. We've gotten compliance. This will show you a new version of it put together by the new code enforcement guy who's a little more professional. He deals with we're not looking to write tickets or harass businesses or homeowners. In that instance, I will tell you the most recent event with code enforcement was the posting of political signs by candidates. The candidates and some people who support the candidates are in violation of the ordinance, and they posted a sign not only on the public property, but on their own property, claiming a First Amendment right. You have a duty to respond to the city code, until it's thrown out of court. It's not, my code enforcement officer simply asked them to follow the law. Some people have, some people haven't. We have not written any tickets. We're going to give them another week or so. If they don't do that and they are putting them in the wrong place, we will cite. Up to now, we haven't cited anybody for that. There is no reason for them to continue to do that other than they just, they just don't want to follow the law. Everybody has to follow the campaign law. You can't invoke some other statute or judgment in another court unless you challenge the Wall Lake Order. So right now, we've not written any tickets for that, and we hope that people just comply. That's all we're looking for. That's all we're trying to do. Wait for the time when you can put your signs out. So that covers the code enforcement issue.
I have a point of inquiry around the political signs. My opinion, I think that is a misunderstanding of the law. I have an understanding that the Supreme Court has ruled on this, that political speech on private property is protected free speech. You can have on your property, it's private property, not the public. The city, the municipalities can only control up to the right of way. It was determined by the Supreme Court in Reed versus Town of Gilbert, Arizona, that it is protected free speech. Political speech is protected free speech on private property. I'd like to hand this to the city clerk. This is the actual Supreme Court ruling to be reviewed by the city attorney at a later time. If our ordinance is wrong, then we need to amend the ordinance to protect free speech, because it is in the Constitution. As I understand that interpretation by the Supreme Court, and has been explained to me multiple times, not just recently, but over the years. So I want to make sure that we as a city are not having ordinances that are in compliance with the Constitution. So I believe that this needs, I'd like to make a motion that that ordinance be reviewed by our city attorney, and if it is in compliance with the law.
Can I continue? I appreciate your opinion, your legal opinion, but I would remind you that you're a council member, you took an oath of office to follow the ordinances that are on the books. The ordinance is on the books. You cannot willy-nilly declare that it's illegal because you've read case law. I read case law too. I've read the very same case. It doesn't affect us directly. Facts are always different. The ordinance is valid as a matter of law. The municipal ordinance is presumed valid until overturned by court. It may be true that we can change that, and we can, but you're required to follow the law. You have no exemption because you assert a First Amendment right, whether you're a councilman or otherwise, but in particular because you're a council, you swore an oath not to do that, to follow the law. That's the point. I have no problem with looking at it, changing it, and putting them out 6 months ahead of time, whatever you want. Just tell me what the law is, and other people complain. When other people complain that a councilman is not doing what they swore an oath to do, then I'm going to look into it.
Well,
I believe you took the sign down, Councilman.
I swore an oath to the Constitution.
So we're good.
On November.
Okay, let's.
So I have a motion on the floor to have our ordinance
Well, you
reviewed.
don't have any support yet. My suggestion is you've turned it over to the city attorney. Let's get his opinion before we start rewriting our ordinance. If his opinion comes back that we're incorrect, then we can change the ordinance.
Again, if I may finish my discussion on this.
There's no discussion.
There's no discussion. You have a motion on the floor and it dies for lack of support. Okay?
Hold for a second. If there's a motion on the floor, is there a second? I'm not finished.
It died for, he made a motion, there's no support.
Do I continue?
So it's gone.
The issue on political signs.
Let her call for a second.
Exactly.
I called for a second, yes I did, and there was no second.
The political signs have been an issue and really what began to create issues here. Political signs were put on our own property, the city signs. City political signs were put in front of the city sign, and the spotlights were placed on, through the last election, placed on the individual candidate sign by city employees to sponsor that candidate, to sort of make a billboard for that candidate. That will not be tolerated this year. You know, it's city property, you can't put signs on. But when you're misusing city authority, city resources, and all of that to get special consideration, we're gonna hold people accountable for that. That doesn't say they're gonna do it this year, but they've done that in the past. I personally witnessed it, and we've taken a vaccine. It was, I believe, the councilman who said he wanted more code enforcement reporting. I am doing that. If he believes he is not in violation of putting up the signs, then get a ticket, take it to court, and beat it. But our ordinance says you can't do it. That's all. It's that simple. So, the next thing I got.
So I have a point of inquiry about the government property. Will this include it being enforced on the farmer's market? Because that was an issue last cycle. So the farmer's market field, that would be considered government property as well, right? It will be enforced at the farmer's market of that field.
Well, absolutely, if they put, that doesn't mean that you can stand in your yard and hold up the sign, that is not the same thing. If somebody is there with their facility owning the sign, I'm not just like saying it's protesting, we're not messing with the people protesting, they protest here every day now. And we got all, so that, now we're not confusing protesting with political signs that are put in people's yards or put in, you know, most of you have seen those signs that I'm talking about in the last couple of elections where they were actually on in front of our monuments and signs where it says welcome to Wall Lake, they were put there. And I actually instructed in order to stop it because they kept me putting back, but our own employees were doing that to support a particular candidate, I mean, which was wrong, but you know, we try to let it, we try to ease into it. I literally had to order the electricity turned off to the spotlight so that these particular candidates weren't getting a special favor when you drive in the evening and getting that special election billboard by the city. So that's how bad it was before, and we're not going to do that this time around.
I think the ordinance actually states there's no signs in any right of way.
Well, I'm just telling you, it went further than that, but you can, you know, if you can stand out there with your sign, you can.
Well, I'm not talking about standing with your sign, I'm talking about placing a sign in the right of way. They have to be
He's not talking about, the councilman, I believe, was talking about the public property over there. They cannot put it there either if they have a facility there or they have a tent and they have it on their tent, they can't do that.
They can put it on their tent, that's their own property.
That's not the same thing, it's not the same thing. If they are there with their sign, that's just another form of protest or First Amendment right.
Well, no, it's the same thing.
Well, that's your opinion, that's not mine. I'm the guy that has to, I appreciate your legal opinion, Councilman, but I believe it's different. It just, you know, we're not going to write people tickets if they got a sign on their tent at the farmer's market. We're not going to do that. If you put a sign on city property, we're going to hold you accountable, or we're going to take the sign and put it where it needs to be and returned. If you're in violation of the ordinances, you're going to get a ticket. It doesn't mean you can't beat it. It doesn't mean you can't get the city council to change the ordinance. I simply, I request that you abide by the ordinance until it gets changed, if it gets changed. That's all, that's all. Can I move on to the next one? I think we beat that to death. All right, so the next one is I would ask you to move to receive the departmental and divisional statistical report.
Is there Is there support?
Receive and file is all I need you to do.
Any comments, questions of the city manager?
I had one last follow-up to the code enforcement, particularly dealing with the Salvation Army. I'm getting a lot of phone calls, complaints about the Sunday drop-offs again.
I don't doubt that. That's a problem. It is.
I didn't see noted here, but I would ask that the city code enforcement be communicated to, but there's an issue over there on Sundays.
You're right, he's absolutely right about that. We had that issue before, at least one or two of you counsel with me, where we were, I was there, it was on a Sunday. I actually assigned the former code enforcement officer to work Sunday, gave him special hours to work Sundays to deal with that. I sat there neighboring nearby and never showed up. I paid him, but he didn't do that. He was code enforcing somewhere other than Salvation Army. It is a problem. They just walk in, throw stuff out.
Every chance you get.
They just throw stuff out.
Every chance you get. It's like third grade.
Excuse me? Excuse me, this is not audience participation.
Well, I'm participating. Through you, we can pay taxes for this kid.
It's not audience.
What the hell? You and nobody, one of these days. For God's sake. That's insane. That's insane. Okay, continue. I apologize.
We will have code enforcement do it on Sunday as well. Because the councilman's correct, they do not comply. It could be the changeover. It's actually the residents that drop off. Sometimes they're using it as sort of a dumpster. They say I'm donating, so they don't have to take it to the dump.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's late at night too.
Well, anyway, that's it. So if, what have we received the other instruments? What do we have left?
Yeah.
We got a motion and support. Roll call, please.
Woodland?
Yes.
Osnick?
Yes.
Robertson?
Yes.
Ambrose?
Yes.
Costanzo?
Yes.
Black?
Yes.
Ackley?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I think you have number 5 coming up.
All right, number 5. What you have before you in your packet is the entire packet on the check that Councilmember Costanzo raised the question of. It took the spin that sometimes there was an illegal impropriety involved, and that we didn't know where the money was spent for. If you had a chance to look at that, I will tell you, I will explain it verbally. First of all, the instrument that was in the packet is called the warrant. That page on the warrant shows exactly where it was spent. If you understand the chart of accounts in municipal finance, you can look at that document and know exactly where it was spent. He just said, what was it? Well, let me tell you what it was. It was $10,000 spent by virtue of a vote of this council, which council member Costanzo voted for. He voted for it, he approved it, and we were continuing that process. The check itself is more than $10,000. The question was about the $10,000 because the line items showed that $10,000 was spent for a particular thing. But in the same warrant, the other 400 and 450, and then another account was for 125, and that was in the sewer fund. So all of the paperwork was there to explain what it was just by looking at it, if you can read the audit. And if you can read the chart of accounts. If you understand that, if you don't understand it, you call me ahead of time or call the finance director and we can explain it. But this was approved by city council. It was a continuation of that. The check is more than $10,000 because in that same audit, there was a $400 payment. There was to a different fund, but same check. We don't write separate checks for every time they send an invoice. We collect them, and there were 4 invoices there. You have the invoices there. They're self-explanatory. There was a proposal letter that came before the city council literally a year before, quite literally, I think 9 days short of a year, in June. And the proposal outlined everything we did. So the whole package is right there. There was no mystery. It didn't need to be turned into a mystery. And all you had to do was be able to read the document to begin with. It was all before you. If you wanted a copy of the invoice, you asked for it. You don't say, what is it? So that's my explanation for that. And I think that's it. I think that's all I've got in terms of the reports. I'm not going to respond to the attacks on me personally from the audience by the candidates, but I can. And I live 3 miles from here, but as the crow flies, if you're going around the corner, and I've lived there for 9 years. There's nothing in the city charter that requires me to live here. Indeed, it says that if you ask me to live here, but that's actually prohibited as a matter of law. I don't make more than the governor. That's a lie. I do not make more than the governor. I'm not even close to making what the highest paid public administrator is in Wall Lake. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to make, or I'm supposed to work for free, but I'm not the highest paid. I'm not anywhere near it. My pay is very similar to Novi or whatever. I've been here 9 years, almost 10. They focused on the 10, and if they send me home at 10, that'll be okay. That'll be okay. I'm old enough. The pay for the other city managers are equivalent to. I have more experience, more years on the job. By all standards, my pay is commensurate with what I do. I hold 5 to 6 other jobs that before my arrival, people got paid 6 figures for. And I still hold those. I'm still the public works director. I still have saved money. I save $1 million a year, and I've done it. You're looking at some serious financial problems, and hiring somebody for $50,000 or whatever they think they can do is your choice. You get to do that. But they're lying about my pay. They're lying about where I live, that I have to live here, and the residency is an issue. It's not. Residency is an issue when you run for office. One candidate doesn't live here. She voted for 20 years in a whole nother place and then claims she can move her bedroom and now be a Wall Lake resident. I suspect the voters of Wall Lake are going to be really pissed when she tries to pull that over on. And if they're not, you probably ought to send me home. That's all I've got today.
Okay, thank you.
So, Madam Mayor.
Correspondence, please.
Madam Mayor, back to the item number 5 that was on there, that the point of inquiry was brought up at the last meeting because of how it was written on the check expenditure report. It said proposal letter dated June 29th, 19, which was 3 weeks before. That's what initiated the point of inquiry. What exactly was the proposal letter dated 3 weeks prior?
Okay, this could have all been avoided if we could stop her up phone call.
Let's move on.
Correspondence, please. Nothing? Attorney's report? Oh.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
What were you jumping for?
I thought we were.
Attorney's report. Calm down, calm down. I'm on the attorney's report.
All right.
Item number 2.
On July 30th, the city received 2 initiatory petitions. One was for the adoption of a recreational marijuana ordinance. The other one was an initiatory petition seeking an amendment to the city charter, establishing a retroactive 10-year term limit on the office of the city manager. Because it is a charter amendment as opposed to seeking voter approval of an ordinance, there are a number of additional post-filing requirements that have to be satisfied by state statute before that charter amendment proposal is presented to the voters. Those post-filing requirements include review and approval by the Attorney General, review and approval by the Governor's office. In the past, I've done a number of charter amendments for the city, and that Attorney General and Governor review process typically takes about 6 to 8 weeks. So if I wanted to do a charter amendment, if it was something that was initiated by the city, I would have to have my proposed ballot language to the Attorney General and to the Governor's office by about early June to early to mid-June. In this situation, we got it in on July 30th. The city followed up with the Governor's office and the Attorney General's office to see if the sponsor of the petition, Take Back Walled Lake, had made the proper statutorily required filings with those 2 offices. They had not. So what we did is we in turn sent it on to the Governor's office and to the Attorney General's office to get the statutorily required review by both of those offices before it's placed on the ballot and presented to the voters. That review is obviously still pending. I expect that it's the typical 6 to 8 weeks that it takes. I expect that we'll hear back or finalize that review process by sometime around mid-September. We have reviewed the petition. It does appear to contain the requisite number of valid petition signatures, and is currently scheduled to go before the voters in the March 2020 presidential primary election. So it is something that is going to go before the voters. There are some the language still, the ballot language itself still needs to be finalized through the Attorney General and Governor review process. Now, one of the things, because this is an initiatory petition, the City Council has the statutory right to include what is called an explanatory caption. The explanatory caption is to help ensure that the voters are fully informed and are not misled, and that they know what it is that they're really being asked to vote for. So you can include some additional language that you want that further explains the ballot proposal regarding the proposed retroactive 10-year charter amendment. Because the charter amendment does facially apply to the current city manager, that means that if it was adopted by the voters, then he would reach his 10-year term limit in around May of next year, which is just around the corner. The city manager, as you know, has a 5-year term on his current contract. There's about 2 years that are expired on that term, which means that there's about 3 years left on that expired term. So if he was removed from office or terminated in May of 2020, then what that means is that the city, that creates very significant financial exposure for the city that is upwards of $500,000. $500,000 is what it's going to cost to remove the city manager in May of 2020 or sooner if council decided to terminate his employment. It's the way his contract works. It states that he is paid through the end of the 5-year term plus the benefits. The city council is free to terminate his employment at any time during that 5-year term, provided that he's still entitled to be paid and that he still gets his benefits through that term. That's what the contract states. That's not something that you can wave a magic wand over and change. It's just, it is what it is. So that creates very significant financial exposure for the taxpayers of the city of Walled Lake if the taxpayers decided to go that route. Now, in addition to the upwards of $500,000 in contractual liability exposures that the city would incur, you also have the additional cost of paying someone else to do the job for the 3 years that are remaining on the unexpired term. And then you potentially have additional costs on top of that if the city decided to not pay the city manager and fight it. You would incur additional legal expenses on top of that. So a legal course of action has been placed into motion here, and my job as the city attorney is to let you know what you can expect, what the potential legal financial exposure is for the city if you continue to go in that direction. Now, the other alternative, now there is a way to navigate around that, what I refer to as an oncoming freight train, an oncoming legal freight train, is to simply wait till you reach a point in the existing contract to where you can part ways with the city manager, pay him nothing, and not have to worry about filing a lawsuit. So if you're in the camp of wanting to see a change in the city manager position, that's where you want to be. You want to be in a position to where you can part ways, you don't have to pay him any money, and you don't have to worry about costs associated with fighting a lawsuit, and you don't have to worry about paying someone else to do the job while you're still paying him to do it for another 3 years. And the way you do that is simply to follow the terms of the contract. So you can get there, there's a way to get there to that point to where you can part ways and it's not going to cost the city any money, or you can go in the direction that's being proposed by the Take Back Walled Lake charter amendment and incur all this contractual liability exposure plus all the additional costs that I mentioned as well. And ultimately, it's going to be up to the voters, hopefully, unless council decides to fire the city manager before the voters get a chance to vote on it and take the decision away from the voters. They'll get a chance to vote on that come March. The important thing is that the voters are not misled, that they know what it is that they're really being asked to vote for, that they know that what they're being asked to vote for is to take on this extremely significant contractual liability and all the other costs that go along with it. Now, if the voters decide to do that, then so be it. That's the prerogative of the voters. They can do that. But like I said, it's the most important thing is that they are not misled, that they are fully informed so that they can make an informed decision about what they feel is best and what direction that they feel that the city should really go in. So that kind of circles back to the explanatory caption, which serves the purpose of providing that additional information to the voters so that they have a better understanding of what it is that they're really being asked to vote for. The petition itself doesn't say anything about the potential contractual liability exposure. The ballot proposal question proposed by Take Back Walled Lake says nothing about the potential contractual liability exposure. So the people need to know that so that they can make their own informed decision about what direction they want to go. And that's the type of information that you want to consider about including in your explanatory caption.
When would we include that information? When it comes
well, if you want me to put something together, I could bring it back to the next council meeting. It's not going to go before the voters until March, so we have some time. We have some time to work on it. We're still waiting. I think it would be wise to wait until we finalize the ballot proposal language itself through the Attorney General's office so that we know what's actually going to, what the ballot question is going to say. And then once we know that, then we'll be able to, sort of fill in the blanks, so to speak, like these.
But you could fine tune something at that point in time. So
Correct,
you could initiate
correct.
something.
Yeah, the Attorney General will review the ballot proposal question that's being proposed by Take Back Walled Lake. But they may not, and even if the Attorney General didn't approve what they're proposing, it doesn't mean it's not gonna go before the voters. It's still gonna go before the voters in March 2020. It's just a matter of tweaking that language so that it says everything that it's legally required to say. So it's gonna go, it may not be worded exactly as they presented it. That's gonna be the Attorney General's call, not mine. And once we have that, then we'll have a better sense of what we may want included in this one.
So it's different than the recall petitions. If a recall petition, and we had examples of that 4 or 5 months ago, however long ago it was, if the wording was not clear and didn't make sense to the voters, then the petition didn't fly. But that's not true.
That's part of what the Attorney General is looking for. They want to make sure that it's clear, that it's complete, and that it's not misleading.
Okay, if they say it's not complete and it's not misleading, do we as a council have an obligation to rewrite it? Or will it just not go on the ballot?
If the Attorney General does not approve the question as presented and proposed by Take Back Walled Lake, then it would fall back, then the Attorney General is going to say, all right, it's up to you guys to fix this, so that it says what I think it needs to say. The Attorney General isn't going to rewrite it himself. He'll give you he'll provide comments and feedback and say, I think this is a problem, that's an issue, whatever. And then it's up to us to
Us being the city or us being the people that propose the ballot?
The city does.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to find out.
What the petition does is it asks that a ballot question be presented to the voters for the requested charter amendment. The actual wording of the ballot proposal language itself, if it's, I didn't change anything that Take Back Walled Lake wanted. I just sent it to the Attorney General and left it up to him to decide if he thinks it's sufficient or if it needs more work. He could potentially, the Attorney General could potentially approve it as submitted. I don't know. That's like I said, that's the call of the Attorney General.
In the interest of transparency, I would say that I would recommend that the city attorney come up with the verbiage necessary to clarify what is going to be on that ballot.
Well, why don't we wait?
We gotta wait
the
for
Attorney
the-
General says?
No, he can do a preliminary, he can start doing preliminary research about what verbiage and bring it back to the next council meeting, and then we can look at it.
Why should we even get involved into the Attorney General makes a ruling?
Well, she would do that. She may do that sooner than later. I'd like to be ahead of, I would like to be ahead of the curve, that's all I'm saying.
So I should have some answer from the Attorney General by the next meeting. I will look for that.
So I'm thinking time would be of the essence as far as getting you ahead of the curve, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, like I said, I think what we need to do is we need to finalize the ballot question language itself, and then once we know what that says, then we can work on filling in the blanks.
I agree.
So when does that take place?
Well, like I said, it's typically a 6 to 8 week process, so I'm thinking sometime in September, we may have we may be close to finalizing it. What's that?
So hold off until the September meeting?
Yes, I will report back at the next meeting as to the status of the Attorney General.
Okay, anything else, ma'am?
Then we also have the recreational marijuana initiative ordinance. that is going to, that petition as well contained the requisite number of valid petition signatures. So that ordinance is going to go before the voters at the November election. Because it's an ordinance, not a charter amendment, it doesn't have to go to the Attorney General, it doesn't have to go to the governor. It's just a matter of determining whether or not it has a requisite number of valid petition signatures, and if it does, then that's the end of it. What council, I think, needs to do at the next meeting is that the council needs to adopt its own ordinance regarding the recreational marijuana. The way the recreational marijuana statute works is it's a little different than the medical. With the medical, you had to affirmatively opt in to the adoption of an ordinance. So if you did nothing, then you weren't going to have any medical facilities in your town. This way, it's the opposite. If you do nothing, then what will happen is that the state will decide how many and where those marijuana facilities will go in your city. The state law does allow the city to adopt an ordinance to either opt out entirely or to limit the number of the facilities and determine the location by way of zoning ordinance as well. My recommendation would be to adopt an interim ordinance opting out, and then see what happens in November. If the voters approve the initiated ordinance in November, then that will be the city's recreational marijuana ordinance going forward from there. It will trump and displace any prior ordinance that had been adopted by city council. If the ordinance fails, then your opt-out ordinance will remain in effect, which you can then consider and change after we know what the results are in November. So say, for example, you decided, say if it failed, the voters rejected the recreational marijuana ordinance at the November election, you could then revisit the opt-out ordinance and decide, okay, maybe we want to have a few of these facilities and decide where to put them and determine the process and the various regulations that would come into play as well. So the state, I do anticipate that the state will start, I believe they're going to start accepting state applications in early November and then start issuing licenses 60 days thereafter. So that's why you want to have something in place in the event that the voters reject the ordinance that's going to be presented in November. Because if you don't have something in place, then they could start popping up in town without any local regulation or local licensing or anything. So that's why you want to have something in place as sort of a backup in the event that the voters reject the initiative.
By the same token, if we begin and we start an ordinance opting in and have our ordinance set up, we can then go to the voters prior to the election and say, hey, this is what we have approved with a limit, I'm hoping, a limited number of recreational versus 8 someplace all over town. And we've got a basis to go to the voters and say, hey, do you want, I don't know, 3 or whatever, or do you want to have 8 all over town, because this doesn't say where they can be and where they can't be.
That would be an option as well, is to do an opt-in ordinance, but approve just a limited number of facilities
It makes much more sense to me to present a reasonable ordinance to the people than to counteract a ballot proposal that turns our town into what people are trying to call it anyways. By having 8 recreational facilities all over the place.
Is that 8 plus the 3 medical?
Potentially, yeah.
Well, you know, from.
The ordinance that's gonna be presented to the voters in November requires the city to approve at least 8 recreational marijuana retail stores in the city.
Every community?
No,
Right.
this
No,
is just Wall Lake.
And Wall Lake,
This
and
is
do
Wall Lake.
away with
All other
the
licenses.
growing facilities and the improvements to our industrial area.
Right, and it says you have to approve 8 recreational marijuana retail stores, and then all the other facilities, the grow facilities, the safety compliance facilities, you know, transporters and whatever, all those are prohibited.
Those go away.
Per the ordinance that's gonna be presented to the voters in November.
And it gives us also, it limits the amount of monies that can be used, that can be licensing fees of $1,000. It limits the licensing fee to $1,000 in their ordinance. I read that.
Our licensing fee is higher. This proposal, which is, I've heard complaints, people saying that we're behind putting more facilities, that's not true. Some of the people passing petitions are misleading the people signing even, and they ask questions about it, but it seems to, it basically limits the fees the city would get. It just opens the door for 8 facilities, and it doesn't guarantee who gets them. I mean, it's sort of a trick on the voters. A lot of people voted for it, at least several people hopefully spoke to me about it. And I'm going, oh, it's not exactly that way. I don't believe the voters pass it, but if they do, you're gonna have 8 facilities.
Well, that's exactly
Correct.
too, what I heard
That's
from the
right.
residents that came to me saying that they were confused, it was misrepresented.
It was.
To them, it was presented like, you have 15 licenses now, we're gonna reduce it to 8. So people said, we got 15 licenses, we can reduce it to 8. So I said, the biggest challenge here, as always, is informing the public of what is and what isn't, okay? That's why, you know, myself, I would prefer just to prohibit it till after the election. That way it's nice and clean, everybody knows it doesn't exist, and it's not an issue.
If we have a nice and clean ordinance, which we already do, and we add the recreational to our clean ordinance, we can let the people know what we already have versus the unknown, which is gonna be 8 plus whatever. And it's also going to do away with the development in the industrial section that has been vacant ever since the city's been a city.
Right.
And we have a chance now to get some development in there, which their ballot proposal is doing away with. I think we just need to do our homework and let the people know what this ballot is really proposing.
But that's predicated on a wish and a prayer that you can inform the public. You can't hardly inform, I mean, sometimes what's going on here when you're standing here. Okay,
Well-
have we not seen this already? I mean, have we not seen this whole issue with the whole police and fire and the confusion that they believe the DDA was getting some portion of it, they were all against it?
And we went out and campaigned and
Right, but that
we
was
got
the-
a landslide.
Council, also, the people in Wall Lake are not confused. 73% of the people voted.
Right, but we had to do
No
it.
matter that we had people campaigning against it, the people in Wall Lake will speak, as they will reject that. And if they want to do a referendum on me, I'm all for it. If the people of Wall Lake send me home, I'm good with that. But let the people vote, get it all out
Right,
there.
we're gonna let them vote.
But the people are brighter than some people
I
think
know, but
they
you
are.
see who brought this to us?
73% of the people saw through the nonsense.
We saw that,
that's going on
and that's
last
great.
night, and they will see through the nonsense here. They know it's a special interest group. They know they're trying to line their pockets and explode with all these marijuana stores. That will fail miserably.
Right, as you look at the petition and the organization, they came out of Ferndale, and the representatives were out of Detroit, East Detroit, Flint, and wherever these people they could get as just paid employees to go get petitions signed.
Okay.
Wall Lake are a lot smaller than that.
John's got his hand up.
Just a point of information, I believe that until 2021, the recreational licenses have to be associated with a medical marijuana facility.
I think that's correct, isn't
I
it,
don't know,
Ben?
that's not.
There is a provision in the state law that does give preference to previously licensed.
I don't think it gives preference,
they
I think
can't
it
override it?
states they have to be at the medical marijuana facility.
Yeah, I'd have to check the exact wording of the statute, but I know there is something in the statute that.
We don't need more, we don't want more than three. We're having a tough time with three. And let me just say for the record, we got one license. The stuff that you're peddling, one license. That man got the license because he was up and running, had a prior license, and a prior ordinance that avoided all the controversy with the sheriff who was, doing what he was doing. He was waiting in line with all of his ducks in a row. He got licensed by the state of Michigan. We had no choice but issue that license. He passed everything there was to pass. He got the license. Everybody else, they were confused about what was going on. They didn't have the legal advice perhaps, or they just waited. They're still waiting. They're still trying to get lined up. We've had a couple of approvals at the planning commission for site plans and stuff. But we've got nothing. There's no likelihood that anybody's gonna get a license or a business license anytime soon. But you don't want an eight, we're having a tough time getting those three licenses approved, then the other two, so.
Okay.
I have a point of it.
At this point in time, what I'd like to do is.
I have a point of inquiry.
I would like to make a motion to have the city attorney draft an ordinance allowing for 3 recreational facilities. And that
To be associated with the medical marijuana.
To be associated with medical
To be
marijuana.
associated with medical marijuana.
So you want 3 recreational retail stores.
To be at the 3 medical marijuanas that are
One of the requirements would
allowed.
be is that they have to be approved for
Medical
a medical
marijuana.
provisioning center.
If you do it different, you're gonna have 6 facilities.
No.
If you separate it, you could end up having one person or one business license for recreational, one for medical.
No, if you have them in the.
No,
they
I'm
have-
saying that, I'm agreeing with what you're doing.
Oh.
It's always in the
Well, then don't confuse me.
Well, you don't want 6 facilities in the city.
No, you want 3 facilities.
We want 3 facilities. Three facilities, and they'd be associated with the medical marijuana.
3 dispensaries.
3
This provisioning center.
Provisioning centers.
So you're assuring us there, Counselor, that by doing that, we will not be subjected to the vote overriding that?
No, if the voters approve the ordinance in November, that's your ordinance.
Right,
That's
and we have
your- It would override anything.
Plus.
Either way, if the voters approve it, we're gonna have it. If they
Not unless
don't
we opt
approve,
out.
if they. Okay, do I have a support for?
Is that correct? If we opt out, they got nothing then, even if they approve it.
Well, we're discussing, we've got a
If
motion.
you
I
opt
got a
out-
motion. Is there a second for the motion?
I'll second it, but I wanna hear it, the answer.
Well, fine, but I gotta
Now
get a
we
second
discuss
to
it.
talk
Now we
about
discuss
it
it.
any further.
We're still discussing.
We're still discussing it. We're gonna go on.
Vote it over. Support.
So,
Go ahead, I want to hear Counselor knows the answer to that yet, as well as.
What was your question again?
Okay, so we go ahead and create this new ordinance, giving the 3 recreational licenses to the already approved medical and dispensary licenses. If they pass this in November, then we have 8 more licenses coming in.
For a total.
I think you'd have 5.
Okay, 5 then coming in, okay?
I think you'd have 5, because you'd already have.
Okay, so that was the first half. Now, the other half of the question, if you opted out, like any other community could opt out.
You'd have a total of 8 if the ordinance is approved, if the initiatory ordinance is approved by the voters.
Right.
And that could be, there could be some overlap with existing, medical provisioning centers.
That's even if you opt out.
If you opt out, are you out regardless of what the vote is?
If you opt out, then you will have no recreational facilities in the city at all whatsoever. You would just have,
Even if the
it would
ordinance
just be
passed?
medical. It would just strictly be medical.
Even if the
So,
ordinance passed?
that's the game that you guys wanna take.
If you
No,
have,
if
if you
the-
have no
if the
recreational
voters
facility,
approve, yes.
there is no, and I don't wanna put it in money, but it is in money. If you have no recreational facility, you get nothing back from the state as far as taxes.
Correct.
Correct.
And
So
you don't-
we
but
would
you
be
don't have 80
cutting
licenses
ourselves
coming
out for a year of taxes, if you wanna look at it that
Well, how do
way.
you figure a year? If it
Well-
doesn't pass, it could be a couple months later, we could go and create an ordinance.
We've got everything from when the greenhouse opened.
No, I'm saying no, but if you held off till after the election, and you're not gonna bring 8 new licenses in, they can go willy-nilly anywhere they wanna go.
I guess
Which the public does not wanna see.
I have more faith in the people of Wall Lake that if it's presented to them and they understand, they're gonna have 3 provisioning centers with recreation and medical versus 8 provisioning centers willy-nilly around Wall Lake. They're
That's the
gonna,
exercise.
they're gonna understand the difference.
I have so then if we opt out and then decide to opt in and
Yes.
the people vote that they want 8, we're stuck with 8.
Yeah.
Well, if you opted out, you're gonna know what the result of the vote is before you adopt another ordinance opting in. What you would do is you would opt out. That way, that would prevent the state from just approving facilities around the city with the city having nothing to say about it.
But if the ordinance, if the ballot proposal passes, we got 8.
Yes, yes.
So if we don't opt in and get our ordinance in place, we've got nothing to show the people what we can do in the city of Wall Lake.
It's a valid
We
point.
have nothing to show that we as a council are working diligently and allowing only the 3
Right,
that
they
we've
would-
already
right,
allowed.
if they reject,
Plus
if you opted out.
plus the other facilities.
And once
Other
worked
properties.
in Wall Lake when we had 3 facilities. Now we do have 1, but we have an option of 2 more coming in. And 3 worked in the city. We don't need a medical marijuana facility or a recreational facility on every corner in Wall Lake and in between.
Right, but by opting out, you've got none, and you can see where the vote goes.
So
How
here's
much
the
before
thing.
they-
But the vote
Here's
is,
the thing, if you opt out, and then this one with the 8 goes away because it's null and void.
No,
And we
because it's
opt
voting
back,
down.
and then we opt back in, what's to prevent that group from proposing the same doggone thing down the road?
Nothing's to prevent it.
Nothing.
And they can propose that in any community.
They'll be back in March trying again.
They can be like other entities. I'm going to use the school as an example. If you do away with, if you don't vote for their millage, they wait until the next election and they put it on the ballot again and again and again until you finally get sick and tired of looking at it and you pass it. We could end up with the same type of a situation. You opt out, then you opt back in, they come back to the table, they want another shot at the bite at the apple. You know, how long do we want to play this game?
Yeah, whoever is proposing this is not gonna stop just because we opt out or we chicken out and don't do an ordinance now. If they lose in November, they're gonna be back in March, we're gonna continually fight them unless we beat them.
So I have a point of inquiry.
Yes, Gabe?
Has the state issued for the recreational marijuana and the final rules yet, like, or do we have an estimated date when they're going to finalize that? Because that would help in the process for quite a bit.
The state did finalize some of their own internal administrative rules a few weeks ago.
What about like for the criteria, if they're going to select for municipality, as you stated, will they have a formula that you've seen?
Right, I'd have to take a closer look at the actual details of the rules themselves to determine if there's some guidelines within their rules that would say how many facilities they might approve in a single community, or how they're gonna go about, how they're gonna go about making their own decisions
Right.
about, you know, how many are we gonna approve in Wall Lake, and where are we gonna put them, and
I would think they have a formula. If we have 7,000 residents, you get X amount. If you have 50,000, you might get this many. So I think there'd be, and we'd also want
Right,
to,
I'm
we'd
sure-
also
I'm
want
sure
to be
there
in
are some-
compliance with.
Yeah, I'm sure there are some guidelines in the state rules that cover situations where, you know, the city has adopted no ordinances.
but the ballot proposal specifically says you get 8.
This one, correct.
This one.
It says 8 and do away with everything else.
Are we allowed to give description in the ballot proposal to make it clear? You know,
I
saying
don't
that
think
we
you
have
can-
a proposal
No, this is-
that says 3.
I'm not aware of any, you know, this, like I said, this is one of the differences between a ordinance and a charter amendment. With a charter amendment, you can include the explanatory caption. If it's just a straight ordinance, I'm not aware of any statute that would allow you to include an explanatory caption just for an ordinance.
It's gonna take getting the information out to the people. And I think once the Wall Lake voters understand it, they've already been fooled by the petitions, because the petitions have been presented, and I've been told by people, it's been presented to them, do you want to keep medical marijuana, or marijuana facilities in Wall Lake? If you do, sign this petition. So I think once they understand what they really signed, or the ones that didn't sign, understand what it really means, they'll be voting no on it. Because they don't want any dispensaries.
I think we should, I think we should have an ordinance.
I agree.
And then it's, because otherwise it's, if you ever opt in, and we do, I believe we do want to, you know, 72% of the people supported medical, or supported recreational marijuana, or 68 or 66, or whatever it is. So, you know, and I think we want our industrial properties, I think we should have something in place.
Right.
Well, that becomes the exercise.
Okay,
So we want Ben to draft an ordinance, is that it?
well, we gotta take a vote. The motion is,
Yeah, that's what I wanna, what's the motion stand at right now?
the motion is what?
The motion is to approve 3 recreational facilities associated with the medical marijuana,
The 3 medical
marijuana licenses that are available for the city.
So on that same discussion, do we, are we better off to approve that we draft an ordinance so that we can?
That's what we're
That's what he's
Oh,
doing.
an ordinance.
That's what
We're
we're
not
doing.
saying that we've approved the ordinance, we're drafting the ordinance.
Drafting it to come back
That's
to the
the
next
draft
meeting for
ordinance.
first reading.
And then it has to go for second reading.
Okay.
And the ordinance I'm gonna prepare will place a limitation that the 3 facilities for the existing medical facilities.
Correct.
That's what you're asking for.
Yes. We'll allow them to have recreational.
It's not going to include, all the review and approval process in that ordinance. We can do that part of the ordinance after we find out if the ordinance that's being presented to the voters in November passes or fails. We're just, right now, we're just gonna say, we're gonna limit it to 3 facilities total for existing approved medical facilities.
Why can you not add everything that's already in the current ordinance? You're just modifying the current ordinance that we have. Amending the current ordinance.
Well, unless we have an attorney.
Why just do a half ordinance?
Because the one is already there?
Well, because you got another ordinance that might replace it, and you might want to take a second look at I mean, we've been through when we adopted the medical, ordinance, we hadn't been through the process. We didn't know what that was gonna be like. We've since gone through the process, and now I think we're in a position to identify some improvements to our procedural process that we didn't anticipate when we adopted the marijuana ordinance, because we hadn't actually implemented. Now that we've actually implemented the process, I think we're in a position
If you
to
just
improve.
allow the 3 recreational at the 3 medical facilities, if there's 1 license now, if somehow there happens to be 2 licensed by November 1st, is what we adopt going to be able to allow them to apply November 1st? to the state.
At the beginning of
November 1st is the date to begin applying for recreational.
That's at the state.
At the state.
Well, under our current ordinance scheme, they have to be pre-qualified by the state before we do anything. So they're gonna have to, we're not gonna be in a position to start taking action locally on November 1st, because they won't get completed their state pre-qualification.
Even built their facilities, even though they've got site plan approval for those two.
So we have one that's in operation that's
All right,
applied.
well, I'll bring something back in September, and then we can work on it from there.
And Van, do we want to have an amendment to our existing ordinance, so we're not doing a whole?
Well, I'll have to take a look at it and see exactly
add on
what would be the best way to structure it. If it's better to combine it, or if it may be better to have them separate, the medical and the recreational. I'll have to look at that and see which is the better way to do
Because
it.
there's not gonna be a recreational grower.
Well, yeah.
Well, it's gotta come from somewhere.
If they go to grow, they're gonna do it for medical or recreational. It's the
Right,
same-
right, it's the same,
stuff.
same facility, but
They can, the recreational retailers can get it from any grower who's been approved by the state.
Right.
Including someone who got approved under the medical license.
So are
statute.
those growers in our current ordinance, are they medical growers? I guess we have to look at our.
They're marijuana growers.
Actually, we have no grow houses.
What this whole ordinance, I mean, it's, like this is what we said, this ordinance is attempting to do what they couldn't do through the application process.
Right.
And that's all this ordinance is for. Proposed ordinance.
Right. So if you read between the lines, you can see
Yeah.
that somebody
We're
hired
gonna
this
have to get the
firm.
word out so that. the
Yes, you
voters
do.
understand.
Well, we gotta get
That
the
you
word
do,
out.
so whatever, I'm just for whatever protects our cities the best, okay?
That's right.
Either way, whether it's opting out or whether it's creating three that go along with the medical marijuana, that's the most important.
What protections
I
do you
prefer-
have to
Okay.
restricting the number you got and sending that message to people? You got 3 down, you've always had 3 since 2010, even though
You're
there
going
was
to keep
conflict.
Right.
The 3 facilities.
So what do we need to
You're running
do?
the risk of thinking we're no longer in the business of regulating. That's why you passed it. When I came here 9 years ago, you wanted to regulate it, it actually did a good job. It was outside interference that did that. The people who were here were compliant. They should have been left alone. They were not. There were political agendas involved. Had that all happened properly, we would have the same 3 facilities, even if they had moved their location. They're the same groups of people. You do not want recreation to be separate from those. You're gonna have 6 then.
Right.
Hypothetically. To be able to process them, secondly, the efficiency of it, if you get 3 facilities for recreation that are associated, then that process is a lot simpler, it's a lot streamlined. You don't have to start the process
Right.
all over again, going through the whole thing. Now, that's a process to get them licensed for that, but it's a state license and you can do it. But here's another thing, is the policing of the event. You know, Wall Lake has the job to do that, it's our responsibility. So the more you got, the more difficult it's going to be to police that and to deal with that. With the group we had before, the 3, we did not have problems, that was all bogus. We had very few, if any, problems with those facilities. The medical marijuana facilities that existed, we had no police issues, none. The police issues we had is when the sheriff's office was raiding the people, searching their bedroom, taking their stuff, and then they would beat them in court. And guaranteed they beat them all because I testified. Do not expand it though, we're too little, you can't.
Well, that's our whole purpose for this discussion, we don't wanna expand it,
Well,
we wanna make sure that we're getting what we get.
Exactly like the motion is.
Because our problem has always been the outside interference.
Well, yeah.
Okay, it's not that we haven't created ordinances to protect our
Well, this
city and what our residents
proposal
want.
is from the outside too, this proposal
Right.
is not.
Oh, right, no, we saw that, it came from Ferndale with all kinds of outside petitioners that were good.
Well, I think from a manager's point of view, people ask me that, there are some people who do talk to me, and they're concerned about the misrepresentation. The signal
Exactly.
that this council sent tonight could be a good one, we're sticking with trees.
Okay.
No more
Okay,
than three.
that's where we wanna be.
Are we voting? Are we ready, gang?
Well, I think that, Mr. Osnick just made a motion.
He made a motion and it was seconded.
Oh, it was
Supported by
seconded?
Rob.
I stopped the conversation till we seconded it.
Right.
Okay. So, yes is giving the direction to Van to draft to allow 3 recreational and 3 medical facilities. No is against it, and I guess we gotta decide what we're gonna do if that wins.
Okay. Osnick,
Yes.
Robertson.
Yes.
Ambrose.
Yes.
Costanzo.
Yeah.
Locke.
Yes.
Goodland.
Yes.
Ackley.
Yes.
You did.
So that removes item 2 from new business, because we just wore it out.
We discussed it, to make sure we knew what we were doing, what was the best interest of the city.
That's right.
That's what we did.
Okay, are we done, Van, with you?
Yes.
You think?
Okay. Unfinished business. We're back to the resolution regarding the trail. I think we need another motion.
Motion that we table that to the next one.
I'll support that.
Okay, any discussion?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I move to amend the motion to table indefinitely.
We have been asked by the trail not to do that, but is there a second for Mr. Costanzo's motion? The trail is specifically asked, I think, John, Casey, myself, to keep it on the table every month. So I think out of respect to the trail, we probably should do that.
It's leverage.
Roll call, please.
Robertson.
Yes.
Ambrose.
Yes.
Costanzo.
No.
Locke.
Yes.
Goodland.
Yes.
Osnick.
Yes.
Ackley.
Yes. Okay, we've taken care of Beechwood. We're now to the city sidewalks.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I added that.
I was gonna say, I don't remember who added
I
it.
added it, yes. So at the last meeting, I brought up the numerous damaged sidewalks throughout the downtown, the crosswalks. I was more of asking where we at as far as, you know, we were told it was a liability issue because I had brought it up. I was just wondering where we're at in the process in getting these corrected from a public safety standpoint, particularly the crosswalks. Have we
They're not fixed yet.
Have we started the process of at least taking an inventory of how many are?
They're not fixed yet. You know, we have a limit, we have to focus on certain things first. I appreciate you telling everybody that it's a public safety issue. We believe that, but there are other public safety issues too. I will report when we get it done, or you'll see it done. That, you know, that's the way it works. I didn't make a report on whether or not where we are on fixing that sidewalk there, but we have sinkholes in the middle of Maple we're trying to get done too, you know, with the car drive. So we have one person who is out of workers' comp for weeks and weeks, and we have another person who's not reliable in terms of coming in. So we have a tough time getting that stuff done. We may have to contract that out and get it all done our way, which will cost more money, but we are working on it and it's not fixed yet, so that's the answer.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 4, public safety extension, is that what I had?
Campus expansion,
Okay.
and that was mine as well. Last month, we discussed the public safety campus expansion. It was brought before council. The plans were presented to council last month, and it was, you know, it was stated that the plans were in the works for months. I made a point of inquiry asking how much the projected cost of the campus expansion was, and we were told there was no cost estimates yet. The project has been planned for months. I'm trying to get, it seems implausible that we would have plans presented without any kind of cost estimates with it. It wasn't brought to my attention or our attention when I first brought up the selling of this property at the July council meeting. There was no mention of the plans. So my point of inquiry is, how much did these plans cost the city or will cost the city to draw up the plans? That's my first point of inquiry. My second point of inquiry is, do we know how much the cost of the expansion is? That's my first one.
I think part of it is we are appointing the committee tonight, who's gonna meet, I hope as soon as tomorrow or Thursday. And then we can bring back to council revisions to the plan that was presented to us and what the cost is going to be. I can't see the cost being any more than the $500,000 to clean up that piece of property to put it on the market for maybe $250,000. I mean, we've been told by real estate people in town, it probably isn't gonna sell. We got the school property sitting over there. Sitting.
Right.
You know, there's not the desire to bring the big development into Wall Lake.
And you can't have a cost estimate, it's just conceptual, so.
Well, it was a pretty detailed estimate, but if I may, I'll yield the floor when I'm done. So my other point question is, you alluded to it just right there. You know, last year we approved resolution 2018-03 for the cleanup and restoration and redevelopment of this property. We need to determine exactly what is the condition of this property. Is it sellable? You know, I have been on with the DEQ to gain an understanding of the property itself, and the only thing they're identifying as being contaminated now on city-owned property is just the depot building, but there's no particular.
There is contamination down in the soil on this property next door. All that was taken care of was the upper level so that we can use it, we can pave over it.
Encapsulation.
Thank you. But if you start building a building on it, you're gonna be digging up all of that contamination and you're gonna be finding someplace.
Well, I think we need an actual idea of what kind of contamination is there. So I think that we need at least an independent analysis of this problem before we go and develop it. I mean,
You're putting the cart before the horse on all of this stuff. You're talking about monies and monies and monies when we haven't even set up the committee yet. This committee hasn't even been formed yet. We don't even know what is going to be put in that facility. What you have before you is nothing but a idea. Now, that idea has not been finalized. Until you get something that is finalized, then you can start to get an engineering study done. You can find out what it's going to cost you. But up until this point in time, you're blowing gas in the wind.
But the beauty of this project is the War Memorial and the fire training facility and the use of the drug forfeiture funds.
But
let's not forget that.
Well, to my point, there's no
How that comes about,
Yes,
what it's gonna do.
right.
what it's gonna
That's
be.
why we're even talking about it.
What the cost drivers are.
Well,
You don't know.
That's
Because
why
you
we're
won't know
talking
until the
about it.
committee comes up with a recommendation and brings it back to council. Once it comes back to
We
council,
will comply.
then we can direct administration to come up with numbers, do the engineering, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
well,
Mr. Costanzo, you have been one of the major supporters, and you've never let us forget that you are one of the biggest supporters of the airline trail.
I love the trail.
We are demolishing the depot. The only thing that is gonna be at that depot parking lot is a parking lot. That's all it's gonna be. They can call it a trailhead, they can call it what it wants. But once we can put a memorial here, we can put a canopy for our farmer's market, we can start holding our concerts. You've been at the concerts, they're probably the most poorly attended things that ever existed because people don't go over into Sims Park to listen to them. They don't look at the signs, they don't know about it. But if they're riding down the railroad the airline trail, or what do you wanna call it?
So,
And there's signs put up. This can become a hub of the community. And to make a couple $100,000 after you spend 500 makes no sense.
we don't know when we spend 500,000.
We have talked to our own city attorney that has told us the information is there. It's been studied.
I have not seen a study come before this council telling us the exact condition. When we appropriated, to your point, 500,000, we have financial constraints.
Why don't you give this committee a chance to meet? See what they can come up with. See what the costs are gonna be.
I don't disagree with that. I just think we should have a dual track going so we're not wasting time. We have the Tri-A, it's coming up on a year next month, was one of the issues that we're trying to find different fundings for.
What is
Sidewalks.
$200,000 gonna do for Tri-A? It probably won't even pay for two.
We don't know that. I'm suggesting that we don't know that because we never had the property appraised. We don't know the value of that property. We paid over $1.5 million.
Okay,
This
are you ready to make a motion?
Well, I move at least have an independent analysis of the property done to know the condition of the soil, of what we can develop on, and then we can move to at least have an independent appraisal done of the property to know the value after we have the analysis. It's just to understand what we have at that property. The trailhead, we don't want to give up on the trailhead.
Okay, you made a motion. You're still going on. What's your motion?
I move to have an independent analysis of the property done.
Okay. Is there support for the motion? Motion dies for lack of support.
Mayor, may I speak to the issue?
We were trying to avoid you, but that's.
I'm sure you were, but here's the way it works. The proposal was a concept proposal. It wasn't a plan. If you want to call it a concept plan, but, you know, to suggest that somehow we were going to do this without getting it, there would be a concept plan, and if you finalize the concept plan by virtue of a committee, then you're going to talk about engineering it and looking how engineered, how it looks when you're coming down the trail and how you go over the bridge and how that works. Then you're going to bid that out. If you do that, we would bid that out to get the best prices to do that kind of stuff. Then we're going to talk about financing it. We're going to finance it any way we can. The reason we talk about the police memorial is because we do not have that. We would be the first in Southeast Michigan. We believe that the trail would bring people into that. Secondly, it would be a multi-purpose facility, just like this room is. That's what I know how to do. We have enough money to improve that facility, to make it a top-of-the-line training facility, which those folks have been waiting literally for years to do. What Councilmember Costanzo is missing here, that there have been plans for.
Point of order. I'm not missing anything. I'm making a point of order. He's deferring.
Let him finish. First of all, would you please read your Robert's Rules of Order? A point of order does not apply to the city manager. If he asks for the floor, he can talk.
He hasn't referred to all of the plans that have been made since literally 2001. There have been plans to use that facility. That's why it was purchased to begin with. They did the assessments that he's talking about going out and doing again. They've done, that's why it was fenced in. That's why we didn't use it. That's what brought it to a screeching halt, followed by then the downturn. What we've done is we improved our financial position, and we've gone back to the original concept of putting it to work for the police and fire to make it a training center, but use those dual facilities for parking, for the farmer's market, for the police memorial, for the trail. The big deal about the trail is it really is going away. I do lose faith in the trailhead down there. I know that from the beginning. I've been calling it out. All the money got siphoned away to the Gateway to Commerce. Dave Scott's Gateway to Commerce. $6 million. Count it. Go look it up. There's no money left to do the depot. The closest thing we're going to get is the trailhead here. It'll be on our property. We'll be able to control it. That's what you get out of this. You're gonna, in a week, there won't be any depot. This is what you told the people that you're gonna have. There won't be any more. That's actually a good thing, because the people of Wall Lake are not on the hook to spend $500,000 to build it. We put it to work for what it was originally purchased for, but we can fund it. But we can only do that if you come together and stop convincing people you can sell city property to pay for a project. Even if it was $1 million, what we paid for it, that would pay, what, a quarter of the Tri-A project. That's disingenuous. You cannot sell city property, city facilities to pay for project management. I implore you, move ahead to the committee, find out what we need, we'll get studies done, do a design, and spend some money, turn it into a facility that makes all these people happy, police and fire. We get a whole lot of benefit from the fire department. They're essentially volunteers. They get paid a little bit, but they're that. And pandering for votes about doing something else with it is not gonna do it. You need to move ahead with your committee.
Okay. So if I may follow up with that, the Trailway, the monies, the $6 million that you're alluding to, the Trailway funds were never used for that. It was the bridge was paid for with a SEMCOG grant and Commerce funds. The DNR, excuse me, I have the floor, sir. The SEMCOG grant and Commerce funds paid for the bridge. They paid for the upgrades. The TAP grant and the DNR grant paid for the trail and the trailway construction, plus the 2.3 million in donations that were received for the trail construction as well. The depot was going to be part of phase 2. It is in the heart of our downtown district, which is what we're trying to help our downtown district, which will help sell that school property, having in the heart of downtown. Having a facility presented to us with burn facilities, fire observation shelters, and a massive parking lot is pulling out of our downtown. There's no guarantee that we're going to have the drug forfeiture funds to pay for this project. It is an underutilized asset. As I stated the last one, when I had something extra at home, I'm not using it, I turn around and sell it. That property's been empty for years. It's limited use Wednesday mornings. It's underutilized. I'm just trying to get a return investment back to the taxpayers' monies. The last one I have is the first question I asked was, how much do these plans cost by Boss Engineering? Do we have an estimate of what these plans actually cost? Because these are pretty elaborate plans that were put together by Boss.
We don't know the plans until we order the plans. It was a concept. Are you asking me how much?
How much did these cost? And when were they put together?
The plans were put together leading up, prior, we've been working on them for years, ever since I've been here, Councilman. It's just like everything else, if you don't recall, part of this plan, it comes from the discussion we did. The reason we extended, opened the gate over there was to build the facility. The reason that was done, and that got peddled as putting 2 inches of asphalt. No, we had a collapsing infrastructure underneath the library, underneath the fire hall, and all that was all done then. I can't get you up to speed if you won't come to City Hall and sit with me and talk. Your refusal to meet with me and go over plans is causing you to not be informed. I can't sit at every council meeting and bring you in plans from 2001 and 2011. The plans have been on the book to put that to work. For you to declare that it's underutilized is true. You're good. You're right. It's very simple. It was underutilized because it was declared a toxic waste facility. We're going to have to clean that up if we do anything else, if we try to sell it. If you've been in the business long enough, and I have, you know that that's not going to be beneficial. I think the school property is only selling for $600,000, and that's 6.45 acres. So I'm not sure why you would want to, even why that would sound like a good idea, to sell the facility that we got to pay to put together a facility, a training facility, or all the other stuff. Indeed, one of the plans was to bring the depot there in the past, to put it right there. Right.
That's right.
We're going to move it. So now you want to sell it, and you're questioning our judgment. I get that. You're allowed to question my judgment, but I believe my judgment is just as good as yours, Councilman.
And these have been going on for so many years, they're probably
You've not looked into it. I implore you, come to the City Hall, look at the plans,
don't perform, come and look at the plans that have been there since 2001.
And this is an important part of the city as well.
It is, and I would like to get it back under the tax rolls when we have the depot giving up on that part of the property that is at a point. We have the Friends of the Michigan Airline Trailway, we have the Trailway Council that's together. You know, they've already proven that they have the ability to raise funds. We are multiple conversations around our tax base and getting it back up. Putting something back up on the city, generating revenue is important. Getting revenue for something that's been sitting idle is important.
Sir,
I love
you
the
were
idea.
at the trail meeting, you heard them say, maybe a depot in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years.
I've been here for 10
In other
years,
words-
they've never done anything for Wall Lake. You've got a trail that we had, I got here. It's got asphalt on it now, I'm good with that. But all of the money got siphoned away for other projects. Wall Lake residents are paying for what they didn't get. They were sold and it was peddled that the depot was going to be the trailhead, and you're telling us to have faith in some group. I was here from the beginning. I've been a voting member of the trail rep. I've watched it, I look at the numbers, I read them. It is true that there was a lot of money donated, but none of it came to Wall Lake. Your allegiance is somewhere else. It certainly isn't to Wall Lake.
It is the Wall Lake with the trailhead, getting our property developed in the heart of our downtown. We need to get our downtown developed.
Okay,
By the
are you
businesses.
making another motion, or are we just gonna sit here
No,
and beat this to death for another hour?
No, motion
You
is
know,
fine.
is he against the facility? You know, I think it's just like
I think
thinking
most
fire.
people in the city will enjoy this facility.
Okay, let's move on. Second reading of the C 34619 amendment to consumer fireworks. Do I have a motion,
Move to
please?
approve second reading of C 346-19.
Is there support? Any comments?
Just reading it, there's a few dates that this restrictions do not pertain to, which is what we're looking for.
Thank you.
All right.
Roll call.
Ambrose?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Knopf?
Yes.
Lublin?
Yes.
Grosnick?
Yeah.
Robertson?
Yes.
Ackley?
Yes.
Thank you.
Council comments. Tamara.
I know it's a late one, but I really appreciate everyone staying late and voicing your opinion, regardless of what side you're on. You standing up there and making your voice heard is very important, and I thank you.
I'm excited about the extension of the public safety campus. I think it's a great project, funded. With forfeiture funds, it's outstanding.
Thank you. Bob, are you down there?
Yeah, I'm here. I don't have too much to say other than this building came as a result of forfeiture funds. The cops got showers and some other things on the other side of the wall here. But it turned out to be good for everybody, and I think this extension to the public safety campus can work the same.
And thank you to the chiefs for allowing us to use it. Gabriel.
Yes, I'd like to allude how we started this meeting with the presentation by Dory at Dance Dynamics. I expressed, that I was disappointed in what was happening, and she is correct. The city, it was promoted by the group that was protesting her that this office was going to be used as a staging ground for her protest for food drinks. It was not protested. It was not promoted as police interviews and as we heard throughout the rest of the evening. It looks, as I said earlier, I thought it was very unseemly that the city had taken sides against the business. It seemed like it was a violation of their due process. Nobody had been convicted, no charges have been filed at the business. We have Iron Labs that just has a public safety issue where they had multiple issues from selling tainted medical marijuana to marijuana without barcodes becoming basically a public safety nuisance that Dana Nessel had to shut it down, our Attorney General. Are we gonna allow this facility to host protests against Iron Labs? We sort of set a precedent by doing what occurred last month. As I stated before, it was promoted by the group that protested a business in our city to use this room as the base of operations. This is how they promoted it. It wasn't mentioned, it just is.
This room was used to interview by the police department.
If I may finish, I have the floor, but how it was promoted on their page that they were using this as a base of operations. We had no knowledge of that. We just had a council meeting a few days beforehand where, yes, the business with that business was temporarily suspended was going on, and then immediately we're allowing a base of operations out of government property. It did not seem right. It just, to me, in my opinion, it seemed unseemly and was not faithful to.
If I may ask you a question, where is the police department supposed to interview people that are claiming to be victims if they don't do it in City Hall?
In the police department.
In the police department. Again,
I'm asking you a question.
in the police department, and we have.
This is part of the police department.
I understand, but they were promoting the City Hall was being used as a base of operation. That's how they.
This isn't City Hall. This
this
is
room-
part of the police department.
If we want to split semantics, they were using this room, the government-owned property, as a base of operations. It seems like we were taking sides as a city, and it is not right. It seems unseemly. That is why I'm expressing. Everybody's afforded due process. I talk about.
Called me and asked me if that was so. We did not take sides. I did not take sides. What she said, or somebody said, that the city never bought anything. We never paid for it. Dennis Witt bought over $100 worth of coffee and donuts, and I listened to almost all of those women and more tell their story to me and to police officers.
The stories aren't the issue.
That was my job. I didn't go outside. I didn't participate in any of the stuff that they had set up independently. They had tables. They had party-johns out here. This was for them. I even had people leave that didn't have a business of being there. They were trying to turn it into a public meeting. It was, the city council didn't take sides. I understand, I think what he's trying to say, the council was trying to say is we shouldn't. We didn't. I can't interrupt the ladies because you heard the story. I support them. You apparently don't. I support them. I believe them. I believe all those young women. I know that some of those people are telling the truth.
That's not a dispute. I'm saying the due process is just as important. And then remaining neutral as a government body is just as important. The Constitution matters. And I'm sorry, we heard a lot of inflammatory, almost liable slander statements being
No
made.
different what they say about me, but.
Well, I understand that, and it's not right. I'm not
That
saying.
isn't right.
Well, anything that is said, right? So we have this facility that's being used as a base of operation. That is what I'm alluding to. Nobody's been convicted. I'm expressing that we should, in my opinion, that we should have throttled down, backed off of it, still conducted the interviews. Not saying anybody was. I'm not saying any ladies were wrong, that they're incorrect. I'm saying that the actions by this, using this facility as was promoted, multiple pages.
I can't stop what they're proposing.
As you said,
They have understood.
the city did not promote that. What they put on their website, what they put on their website,
All
they removed the people from here.
Dennis Witt came in on Sunday. I opened the doors with police officers to listen to the stories. You heard some of them. You apparently don't believe them. I believe it all.
I didn't say that.
Well,
That's not what it's not what I said. You're putting words in my mouth. I'm saying.
Well, how can you couch what I did on my own time on Sunday? I worked Sundays. I came here. The other women, there were some women who volunteered. My assistant city manager was here. We listened to them. The police officer was here. That's my role as public safety. My job was to listen and provide a place where they would talk. And they did. And now they were free to tell you. And if you're on the wrong side of this, shame on you.
Okay, I think we beat it to the case again.
Well, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the residents that did vote for the police and fire millage by an astonishing 72.37%. So to Chief McGinnis and Chief Coomer, job well done to all your staff, excellent. I guess that tells us what the people feel we should have and what we do have, because as was stated earlier, without it we wouldn't have it. So we appreciate that, and it also said that the people can see through all the smokes and screens and all the misleading conversation that took place out there, both from in the council chambers and on social media, that it was what it was, and the money was going to the police and fire and not to all these other places that didn't seem to be made. So we appreciate it. We thank you guys very much. To all your men and women, I'll thank you on behalf of myself and I believe the rest of the council. So